Hi, I am so excited to once again be back with another interview with another member of Something Awful Survivor Let's Play. Uh, we have another finalist with us, Taste. Taste, hello. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and I look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm notoriously forthright, so I am happy to say whatever you'd like to hear.
Awesome. I know that you've played in a couple of these before, right? Like I think you've played at least two other times.
Apparently, I've played in five. I only remember three of them, but I looked through the backlog and I saw my name, and I think it was when they were all bunched together, like three in a year or something like that, and I kept coming
Yeah.
back. But yeah, I lost. I lost the first game I played in, which was SAS, because despite running the whole game, I couldn't express that properly to the jury. Now, to be fair, during Final Tribal, I was both in another country and undergoing a minor crisis. But, I should have just expressed myself, hey, I have an emergency, I can't make it. But nevertheless, I blew that one. I went out, I think, first boot in the next one because Wind Virus and Franz are like, this guy's a problem, get him out of here. Um, so they must have
Wind
recognized that
Virus
I
was
did well
also
the
my
first time.
Wind Virus was also my downfall in Awful Survivor SAS as well. So I was
He
like
is
the
also
third boot in
a
that game.
great player who has never won Survivor. So I feel some kinship with him. And then after that was the Cataclysm. That was the anime season, um, which I think gets an unfairly negative reception from the remainder of the forum's reality game clique that hangs around now because the people that were on my side of it are pretty much all gone. But I'm not here to fight that fight anymore. Suffice to say, I played an excellent game. It just didn't come together. Um,
Yeah,
then there's one that
I've
I
heard
straight up
the
don't remember at all. I was in GBS, which I literally have no memory of whatsoever. I made the jury and I voted for someone, but I don't recall being in. I was in it with Curious Cat and Fast Luck, and I don't remember a word of it. So, just I guess my neutral performance should be considered making it mid jury. Um, And then this one, where I also lost in Final Tribal, and Cena was nice enough to compile the data that I am the only person to make two finals without winning it.
wow.
So yeah,
That
I
was nice
played
of
too
him
much.
to. did you did you have a plan going into this one, or were you just like were you just like whatever happens happens, or did you sort of have like did you come in kind of saying like these are people I want to work with, um, or anything like that?
So when you say come into it, you mean once like I saw the roster breakdown and whatnot?
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me. Like once you saw the roster, and I'm a Mafia player as you are, and there was familiar names in there like Merc and Jose and a couple other people. Were you
Sure.
like, okay, great, these are people that I can work with, or were you just like, I'm just gonna kind of wait and see what happens?
Well, I think I started playing Mafia right as Chili and Jose stopped playing regular Mafia. So it was a tenuous connection, but I know I'd had them in my games, especially because I ran a couple games throughout the years where I reached out to older players to try and get them back involved. Because the Mafia user base has shrunk a bit since when I started, and the regularity of
Yeah,
games has dropped a bit. But so I had a little bit of a connection. I figured, well, it's a place to start. But my plan was to be well liked enough that even if I didn't have a tight alliance, I wouldn't be in any danger early
hmm
on. So I really did reach out to everyone, and most everyone replied back pretty quickly, and we were good to go.
yeah. Um, so I have talked to a bunch of people from the Cheese Tribe, and
Sure.
I feel like I know the first week pretty like the back of my hand, which was there was you had your alliance with, sorry, Let me pull up my little chart here.
It was with I had one with Chili and Jose, and one with Chili and El Generico.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And then hold on. Yeah, and then you guys kind of brought you guys each had a like you guys each had your own like person, and then you kind of brought everybody, you, Elgin, and Jose together in the Armored Core chat room as kind of your foursome.
We debated for a bit the order in which to do that, so people weren't pissed off, and we may have overthought it
Yeah,
in context. But my perception is that it is very difficult to be too careful in this game. If it stops you from doing something you should do, that's too careful. But if you want to take the time to think about how to manage it properly, and then you go forward with it, I think usually you can't harm yourself that way. So that's sort of where I
I
am.
agree with you. I thought that that conversation that you had was really interesting, where it was kind of like, okay, do we want to bring Elgin into R3, or do we want to bring Jose into R3 with Elgin? And I thought that kind of the way that you navigated that was really interesting. Really quick before that, I just wanted to talk about your idol find because I was on production. I had the fucking clue and I had no idea what the hell those clues meant. And the fact that you were able to like brute force it and find one just through sheer like willpower, I thought was fucking incredible.
I appreciate that. I did spend a lot of time looking through places, and then just the epiphany hit where I thought about they're not going to be in the old threads. They're not going to be on anyone's profile picture. They're not going to be in anyone's aim, which I could not access the old A Delicious Heron that Cena had, because we used to
Mhm.
communicate through that. And when I was playing before, fuck, where else did I looked all over, and then it occurred to me there were these threads that he had told me about way back, like a year before the game started, uh, that were still accepting posts at the time, and that for reasons that we talked about at the time, it would be fun to have, like hidden thread there. Um, and so then I rooted around through our old conversation, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna look here, and there it was. And the funny thing is, I decided to look through the first 200 other sub forums to see if any other idols were hidden. But I just did not go all the way. I figured, fuck it, I'll do it tomorrow. And well, the day after that or whatever, the day after that, we got the second clue from Toaster. And if she had given that to us a day before, I would have had two idols, and I may have thought differently about telling Chili. But
Yeah.
it came together how it came together.
Yeah. I I was so impressed with the fact that you just like brute force found that idol, and the fact that you were you were cognizant enough to think about like these old conversations that you had with Cena. Like, I was really impressed by that. I'm pretty sure I probably said it multiple times in the viewers vista that I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe that Taste was able to just find a idol just like that. And um one of the things that you did with the idol, like, I'm a big like Rob has a podcast kind of listener, and one of the things that Stephen Fishbach talks about or Fishback, excuse me, talks about all the time is using the idol as an alliance builder. And
Yeah.
I thought that you did really like that you used your idol to build alliances with people, and I thought that that was before the merge, you used your idol to build alliances with people, and I thought I was like really impressed with that because a lot of times people are like, oh, I just got to get this idol and not ever tell a single soul about it, but instead you were like, I'm gonna, in good faith, I'm gonna tell you this, here's mine. And then once you had that, you were kind of like, it felt like your relationships and everything kind of changed at that point. So
Well, once you tell someone that you're sharing a secret, right? That establishes a bond immediately.
yeah.
Plus, I took a leap of faith. I felt bad about Chili potentially, running riot for the clue that came out, because he wasn't going to get anywhere with it because I already had the idol, even if he found it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I told him, and I sort of, I came in with the, hey, I'm kind of doing a favor by telling you this, so like maybe let's see where this goes. And then Toaster immediately drops the other clue. If I had waited 10 minutes, I could have thought about it differently. I could have, I might have given him an idol anyway. I don't know, but
Yeah.
effectively within the first 2 or 3 days of the game, we had found both idols into our final two. Well, it wasn't final two at that point, but I think it was pretty clear it was going in that direction.
Yeah. Did you ever know about the "taste was here" note that Sally left on the flag?
I did find out about that after the fact. Yes.
Oh my god, that was so fucking funny because it is. So the order was you and Chili found your idols, and then I think Sally was like messing around with the flag, interacting with the flag, and they just go, "Hey, Cena, can I leave a note that says Taste was here?" And I was just like, "How the fuck does Sally know that Taste has an idol?" Because it just was like so funny that out of all the fucking people on your tribe that Sally could have picked to leave like a blank was here note, they just happened to pick you, the person who actually had the idol. And I kept like hoping that this was going to end up becoming a thing, and then it just never did, and I was so annoyed about it.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised it didn't. When I think Chili heard that someone had found it, I don't remember who he heard it from. He might have heard it from Jose, or he might. So
I think
Jose might have
Jose
told
was the
us
one that
because
found it.
was that it? I thought Toaster. Well, either way, they found it when they were on after the swap, and they were desperately scraping
Yeah.
for an idol, and I had hoped that Chili and I would be separated so that there would be one idol for us on either side, but it just didn't come together.
Hmm. Yeah. Um. So I know that. Let me try to think of how to phrase this question. So I know that on the Cheese Tribe, especially that first week, there was basically like your group of four, and then there was like Toaster, Sally, Chaos, and Drake, who were
Mm.
kind of like off on their own. I know that later on in the game, you and Drake especially formed a were pretty tight, and I felt like you, Chaos, and Drake had a pretty good relationship down the line. Did that relationship start here in on the Cheese Tribe week 1, or was that something that kind of came later after the merge?
Well, it was before merge, but I think it really grew in strength after the swap. I mean,
Hmm.
I did try to talk to everyone, and I got some, basic how are you doing? What are you thinking about? Um, before the swap with Chaos and Drake and Toaster. Um, but Sally just never was interested in talking. Um, I don't know if I talked game to him too early. I think that might have been the case, but he just did not seem interested, and he didn't apparently seem interested in talking to anyone else either. So I don't know if he just had it in mind to wait and see if he could link back up with people he knew better or not. I don't know. Um, but yeah, those
From talking to
relationships really
Sally,
started. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Excuse me.
No, I was done. I just kind of ramble on at the end.
From talking to Sally, I kind of got that impression from them that it was like that their plan was just sort of to sit tight, and then when they felt like they could cause some chaos, that was when they decided to finally, like come out of the shadows.
Well, he's lucky because he would
So
have been
yeah,
the
so
first time.
yeah, yeah. Um, so so you guys, I mean, it was pretty much like an ass whipping from start to finish, like those first two, especially that first week and a half. Because I mean, it was just like, oh my god, like everything is just going right for the cheeses, and the slow beefs can't stop falling over themselves. Do you
Yeah.
think,
Um,
like do you think that never going to tribal like hurt hurt your tribe unity, or do you think it helped? I don't know if that question makes sense, because like when you're in an alliance with people, it's really easy for people to say like, yes, I'm in an alliance with you, but tribal council is where like the rubber meets the road, and that's where you like really see who the real motherfuckers are.
I think it extended the polite fiction that goes on um, before you start have to making hard or you start having to make hard choices. Um, I know that at least to me from the outside, it seemed that Chaos and Drake and Toaster weren't really thinking about the future in that way. And I think we can talk about this later, but I think that there was a repressive effect of having both veterans and newbies. And I think, in addition to whatever it is that we were handling, El Generico was thinking game from day one. So it's not exclusive, but um, the other people I mentioned, I think they were waiting for an impetus to start thinking about the game that way. So I don't know that it ended up hurting our tribe in that because those we couldn't get that mindset ironed out earlier. The first time I think that they began to think about the game in that way, that being Chaos and Drake, I think was after we merged, because the Chrism vote was simple, and then we didn't
Yeah.
have to do anything after that. And then when they started thinking about that game in that way, their opportunity was to join the group that wanted Merc out, which was a problem for us. And they
Yeah.
didn't feel
I actually
any obligation to us.
Yeah, I actually agree with you 100% that I think had you guys at least gone to tribal once, that it
Mm-hmm.
probably would have kickstarted everything and maybe made some of the people a little more engaged, because I have to admit, I think it'd be really fucking easy to just sort of check out when it's like, oh, we won immunity again. Okay, see y'all in 2 days. Oh,
Right.
we won immunity again. See you in 3 days. Oh, we won immunity again. See you in 2 days. And yeah, I definitely agree with you that not going to tribal probably hindered you guys a little bit in terms of like tribe unity.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, but the swap was interesting, I thought, because the way that it broke down, it was really interesting, where you had two. See, basically, you had out of your group of four, you and Chili were on the same tribe.
Right.
Then you had Elgin and Jose on the other tribe. You
Yeah.
had three of the former beefs, and then you had two those like those four unaligned people that you had two on each side. And then I thought that like one of you guys' strengths, and the reason that you were sort of able to hold your group together, was that like you immediately put a room together for you, Chili, Drake, and Chaos, and you were like, we need to stick together. Like, this is easy. It's 4-3. Like, let's not overthink this. Let's just, chrism out. Like, let's do this. Whereas over on the slow beef side, I didn't really feel like Elgen and Jose kind of did that same thing. And of course, you also had Sally, who was, tight with Bunny, and then immediately jumped over with Bunny, Haschel, and Spokes. But it was kind of an interesting, like, what should have been just a straight cheese pagonging of slow beef ended up turning out to be a little bit more. My question to you was, did you ever think that maybe slow beef was just trying to throw the like throw those post merge challenges just to try to get as many of the cheeses out as possible? Because they did end up losing both those challenges, and I had wondered if they were throwing them at all.
I think we only had one post swap challenge. The one where they first voted out. El Generico was after Food Chain, if I remember correctly.
Oh, you're right. Yes, no,
So
no, you're 100% right.
it
There, yeah,
might
there
just,
was only one.
I don't know if they tried to throw chess. I tried to throw chess. I tried to convince Chile to throw. I didn't know how the newbies would receive it. And in the end, they weren't open to it. And Merck wasn't open to it because he didn't want to be anywhere near a tribal. You know, even if I said, like, look, we'll keep you around, it just wasn't the way it was going to
Yeah,
go. So
it,
I desperately banged
that's
that drum, but it was not well received. Frankly, I think that if
that's
we throw
interesting.
that one, we cut Blaze probably. So I lose a final vote, but maybe I gain a final vote if I stay tight with Toaster.
Yeah, there was a couple really interesting votes. Like the merge vote, I think especially was interesting. And I'm not trying to just like yada yada through the first week.
Sure.
There was some interesting stuff on you guys' end where it was just like you guys really setting up, pieces down the road, especially with Merc. Um, the that kind of bringing Merc into the fold, happened in this time. And so, I thought that there was like some really interesting stuff happening, but it just was a lot of like, oh, look at that, slow beef going to tribal again, slow beef going to tribal again.
Yeah.
One of the things in Awful Big Brother is I always felt like that things were too easy for my group. In hindsight, they were, because there was like another group that was working in tandem with mine. But I always had said that like it should have been a big red flag to me that there was no real opposition to what I was doing. Like, did you ever, like, at any point during the season, did you ever think like, okay, there's a real chance that people are going to put something together to kind of try to combat what we're doing? Or were you pretty much, did you feel like you had your finger on the pulse of the game enough to know that that wasn't really a thing that ever really happened?
Well, we didn't necessarily. Well, I I didn't know necessarily what was going on at that first post merge vote, and I did not feel particularly comfortable going into that vote. What was the first post merge challenge? That the auction?
Yeah, it was the auction.
Yeah, I did not feel particularly comfortable um, after that challenge. Which I will note, out of all the challenges that turned out to be clicking contests and F5 contests, the one time I win an F5 contest, I get my prize taken away from me. So I'm a little salty about that.
Oh, oh, that's right. I had forgotten
Yeah,
about that. Uh,
but in any event,
what
I
prize did
felt
you get?
immunity.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because that's right.
No. You
Hashel
know what it
got
was? It was immunity.
Bunny.
Yeah. And then it was the vote steal that I won after that, and then that went to Chile.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I won the F5 race twice. The only times in the game the F5 race didn't result in the winner. Not that I'm salty.
Yeah. So that first vote, I don't know. Have you looked at the vote breakdown chart yet that Cena has produced, or that
I think I
Cena
made
kept
a vote
track of?
breakdown chart at the time that was accurate, not to toot my own horn here, but
Oh,
I plugged around to figure out what happened. Um, and I'm pretty sure it's the only explanation for what happened was that Drake flipped and Hashel did not vote originally in the correct position.
yeah. That's exactly what happened. So it was really strange because Chaos had been working with Hashel, or like and had been talking a lot to Hashel because they were kind of doing like a pseudo let's play thing.
Sure.
And because like you guys were talking about the let's play alliance, and it actually did sort of form, and the merge was the only time it ever had any sort of legs underneath it. And it's
That's what
really just so fucked. What's that?
I said. That was the only time they actually had the ability to really be a threat in this game. And they couldn't coordinate it properly, and we don't need to treat these people like they're the enemy anymore. But
Yeah, but it was so fucked because literally, like, the last thing that Chaos said to Haschel was like, "Hey, we're voting Drake." And then there was like the stuff with the necklace, and I don't know if that I don't know if that is what caused them to flip to Sally, and then Haschel just was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna vote stick with the plan. But it's so crazy for me to think about, like, the ripple effect, that how the game would have changed had Merc gotten voted out there instead of Sally. Because, like, Mafia 4 wouldn't have existed. Like, who would have, who, that idol that Merc found was the idol that you played. So, like, that idol goes back out into the wild. And actually, I would like to talk to you about that idol, because there was some kind of, like,
Sure.
funny stuff that happened with Merc finding it. But what I wanted to talk about in the merge was that, like, you and Chili had decided, like, okay, Chili's going to have all the idols, just
Well,
on,
before
like,
we get
the
started,
off chance. Yes.
let's talk positively about the reason that Merck didn't go home at that vote, because I
Oh
was
yeah.
yeah, um, I am naturally a worst case scenario kind of guy. Um, in this sort of game, I think you need to control everything that you can control, even if it's the smallest gesture, and you have some chance of taking greater control of it, you should take it. That's why, for example, I made the public post after the El Generico vote went down, because if there's the smallest chance that I could convince whoever flipped to try and come back, I would be remiss not to take it. Um, that's why, for example, the bunny vote was 9-2, because you never really know what's going to happen. Sometimes you just got to make it as dramatic as possible. Um, but in this scenario, there was something that we discussed out of game chat around the time that had me a little paranoid, which I'm sure you recall. So that thing made me a little bit suspicious of Haschel in particular at the time, um, and
Hmm.
if he, who was seemingly having inroads with everyone in the game at the time, wanted to set something up, um, it had been represented to me uh, by people, including Chile, that I would be a pretty likely target given how public I'd been at the time. So I figured if there was going to be something that we didn't know
Hmm.
about that vote at the time, it would very likely turn around on me. So that's what prompted me to go after Spokes. That's what led me to try and convince him that we were the path forward, that he was better off coming over to us than sticking with whoever he was with before. And I'm pretty sure I offered in Final Five. Um, this was a
I
promise
don't.
that
Yeah.
I did not anticipate having to keep. It's not to say that I would have broken it personally, but I did not expect anyone else in my alliance was really going to put much stock in a turncoat. I mean,
Hmm.
I told him I'll do my best here. For me, I'll take you along, but I don't know how they're going to feel about it. Um, but it was good
Yeah.
enough for him.
So it was the
At the,
Boston Rob, try to protect her if you can, or I guess it was the Lex, like, I'll try to protect her if I can type
I
promise,
don't
where
know
it was
the
like,
I
I
don't know the
can't really.
context for that.
It was in Survivor All Stars. Amber had flipped over to Lex's tribe, and Rob, Mariano had said to Lex, like, try to protect her, and if you protect her, I'll protect you. And then when Lex was on the chopping block, Lex was really pissed at Rob, and Rob was like, no, 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 I said I will try to protect you if I can, and I can't. It's never mind. It's like
Well, that's sort of the
anyways.
arrangement I started out with Blaze, um, who I first talked to
Oh,
pre-merge during the challenge.
yeah. I apologize that we kind of skipped past all that, because I actually thought that that was really interesting in the Predator Prey challenge, because you were like one of the only people that actually used those rooms to actually, like, talk to the other tribe and actually try to like make inroads with people. And I thought that that was like another, I mean, that was like another thing that I had completely forgotten about that until you just mentioned it. But yeah, I mean, you sort of had Blaziken, who probably felt a little bit safer at that point. So,
Yeah, well, the thing
and
was,
voted and ostensibly voted with you guys to vote out Merc. So I mean, you can't, obviously it, or no, I guess voted against you. Excuse me, but I mean,
yeah,
but still, like voted with you. Then, well, I guess never mind,
she
disregard.
voted with
But
us
you know,
once.
but like yeah, she voted, yeah, yeah, once. But I mean, I thought that
She
it
was a
was
little
at
hard to
least
manage.
good of you to, yeah, but it was at least good of you to like reach out to her and try to make that. You were like one of the only people that actually used those, that time to actually do anything.
Yeah, it's. I was in a position where I expected swap to happen after the challenge. Well, not after the challenge. I thought it was going to happen after the tribal, but I expected it
Hmm.
to happen that cycle, and
Yeah,
or not swap, the merge rather. Was it the swap or no? It was before the swap. I expected the swap to happen, and I
yeah,
didn't know it would happen immediately. But I told her that I wanted to. I first asked her about the tribe, and she was not forthcoming with information in that regard. But I told her, I'd like to offer, reciprocal watching each other's backs, just because I didn't know where I was going to end up, and I didn't know where she was going to end up. But if I was in a position to look out for her, I would do so, and I would appreciate if she'd do the same. And she said she wasn't in a particularly good position, so perhaps I was in more of a position of power offering that. But it was still nice to have because it helped me be a little less nervous about the oncoming
yeah.
swap, which was immediately afterward.
It must have made an impact on her because she voted for you in Final Tribal.
I think again,
I
I
mean,
was one of the few people
so
in the game that treated the old members of the Let's Play collective like people instead of just like boats.
yeah, yeah, that was one thing. And I'm trying to focus on you, but that was one thing that I told Chili that I thought was a huge flaw in his game, was that he did not really that he did not really um like I told him, I was like, you said that they weren't playing, but they just weren't playing with you. And he recognized that that was a flaw in his game. But I there was it started to kind of piss people off the way that some of the players in the game were talking about like Drake,
Well, it should be,
Chaos. Yeah, it was, there
especially
was
with
some
the way
stuff
that
that
some
I
players.
was,
I'm not going to badmouth anyone in particular, but it is funny
no,
to
that's
me
fine,
that
that's fine.
some of the players that said those things were gone much earlier, than them, and really didn't have any game sense. They found out about the game on the
Yeah,
jury or at Final Tribal. So, you know,
yeah,
again, I think the dynamic of having both returners and newbies repress their ability to spread their wings and take risks in that way. So I don't think it's surprising at
yeah,
all. That doesn't mean they're not good players. It means that you've already sucked up all the air in the room.
yeah.
So
Do you watch a lot of Survivor?
I've watched two seasons, both of which I am told are among the worst seasons. I watched the one where Boston Rob basically got set up with a group of nobodies so that he could have a win.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and then the one after that with, I don't even remember, the guy that found all the idols and had dreads and then went on a soap opera after the fact.
Oh yeah, I can't, I don't remember which one that is off the top of my head, but there's kind of this dynamic whenever they do like a fans versus favorites, or like blood versus water, where they have a mixture of returnees and newbies, where the returnee players are already like, we know what the fuck to do, we know where to look for idols, we know like how to pull alliances together, like we know what we have to do to get to the end. Whereas like the new players are like, what are we doing? Look at this pretty dog, and for them, for like the first time players, like it's a new experience, whereas like the returnees are
Mhm.
like, okay, well, we know what to do. And usually for the most part in seasons where there's returnees and newbies, the returnees almost always like shithouse the newbies. And it, again, even in
Yeah,
this
it's more
game,
technical.
that's exactly what happened. Is the returnees just pretty much like, took control. And then I don't think the uh, I don't think that I want to be careful what I say here, because I don't think anybody played poorly, but I don't think that some of the players kind of had a context on how, like, because we can skip ahead to like final six where chaos went out. Like, I was like, okay, well, chaos needs to get Drake and Jose together, or excuse me, chaos needs to get Merc and Jose together and like force a tie, because that's the only way that chaos is not going to go out, is to try to force a tie at that point and make it go to rocks, because then at that point Merc and chaos would be immune from the rock draw, and then so it would have been you, Chili, Drake, and Jose drawing
Jose.
rocks at that point.
Although I think one of them
And I
had
was just like,
immunity at that
I
point.
don't think oh yeah, Merc had immunity.
Yeah.
It's sorry, it's a little fuzzy, but I was thinking to myself like, okay, six is the last time that anybody has a chance to do anything against the Mafia 4. And I just don't think that Chaos had, that was even like an idea that Chaos had. And in context of Drake, I personally thought that Drake played incredibly well for a lot of stuff that she was dealing with. And the fact that she had never fucking watched Survivor before. Like, she didn't know what she was getting into. Like, what the fuck else is she gonna do but stick with people who have protected her? Like, I I was like, she had no impetus to flip, because like, why the fuck would she?
Well, the
You
thing
know?
is, we're fucking obsessives. We take this way too seriously. And bringing people in that don't have that sense, it's not reasonable to expect them to jump into that and to return your energy. Because I think a lot of people didn't have an idea of what they were getting into. And it was
I
unfair
I
pressure.
agree with you 100%.
I think Drake caught a lot of unfair flack for that because she wasn't willing to dedicate 24/7 access, and that she decided to make an alliance and stick with it. And it's unreasonable from people who just didn't like that or thought that was not playing. But where did playing get you? It's just pointless. But with respect to that, I thought I had reason to believe that there was a chance that Chile would flip at that point. I had sort of
At
to what,
six,
yeah, sort of to what we discussed earlier. I expected a favor, and it just didn't come.
yeah. I wanted to jump back real quick to the vote at 9, which was, I thought, a really interesting, which was the Haschel. It was where Blaziken went home, but that you tried to get Haschel out.
Yeah,
I That was one of the most exciting cycles for the viewers, because
sure.
it was like the power couple of this game, the two people that have like run this motherfucker from start to finish, all of a sudden had like different aims and different goals. But were you extended the olive branch to Chaos and Drake, and you were like, look, let's like, this is what we need to do, because Haschel is a dangerous player. Let's get Haschel out. And you did a wonderful job selling your case um to Chaos and to Drake. Wait, hold on, sorry. let me just double check. Yeah, Chaos and Drake. Yeah, you did a great job of selling your plan to them, and you sold it to Blaziken. And I mean, like, I thought that that was a really smart play on your behalf because, you know, what happened the very next week? Haschel won immunity. You know, you identified who the dangerous player was, and you were like, no, you told your alliance like, no, I think this is what we need to do. And I think that that takes a lot of courage. And even though the move didn't work, the fact that you tried it and the fact that you had enough conviction to do it, I thought was commendable.
Well, I sort
Was
of
there
did that
anything
for.
that was there anything Go ahead, sorry.
No, finish your question.
I was just going to say, do you think that there was like another person that you could have talked to, or do you think there's anything you could have done differently there to actually get the move to work?
Well, there were two reasons I wanted to do that. Um, the first of those was, though I never really felt much love for the Mafia 4 Alliance, it was Chili's preference that we stick with them. So, as far as his interest went in maintaining the health and security of that alliance, um, I wanted to do what I could, in order to keep it healthy. I saw Haschel as long-term poison for that alliance because he was in tight with everybody. He was engaged with everybody. I don't know whether that was going to manifest positively for him in game sense, but he was tight with Jose, who absolutely refused to vote him, refused to even entertain voting him, even in the
Hmm.
future. And just like I, but he had a relationship with Merc. Merc recognized that he was a threat, but Chili had a blind spot for him at the time. Um, and what really worried me is that I had had that protection arrangement with Blaziken, where I wasn't going to completely detonate my game over it, but I was going to do the effort. And at the end of it, it was clear that nobody else was going to budge on this, that they all wanted Blaziken out. And so I said, that's fine. If we do Blaziken now, can we commit to Haschel next? And Merc and Chili were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then Jose said, well, if that has to be what it is, I don't think I'll vote for him, but I won't. He wouldn't commit to even writing his name down after a sacrifice from another member of his alliance who had promised that to some, or who had promised protection to someone he was willing to vote. So clearly, at that point, that set off alarm bells, especially when Haschel was talking about cutting me, who was a member of the alliance. Now, was it feasible? No, probably not. But I considered it a gesture that my security was not all that important to them. Um, so I saw that if he can have that effect without like really being that close with them or at that stage of the game, I didn't want to see what was going to happen in 2 or 3 cycles. Because that clearly would have rotted that alliance, I think. Um, and then secondly, I had that arrangement
That's
with Blaziken. So, so that was my
that's
reasoning.
that's interesting because I guess I hadn't thought about like how your arrangement with Blaziken like played into that tribal. That's interesting. So did the alliance know, like, did they know that you were voting for Haschel like regardless of what happened, or did that blindside them?
Chili knew. Chili knew, and he said that he would let it happen if it happened. Um, that he wasn't going to work against it.
Okay. I
And
I thought that I thought that tribal was really fun, and I thought everything leading up to it, because like I said, and I said this to Chili too. Like, I wanted to see you guys kind of get knocked down a peg because everything had gone your direction. So I kept like waiting for this one time where the votes didn't go the way that the core alliance like thought it was going to go, and it was that tribal where I thought that was going to happen. And so I was like pretty much on the edge of my seat like the whole time leading up to it, like if the move would work or not.
Chaos left because Chili told him it wasn't going to work. which it would have worked if Spokes hadn't jumped ship, which was a horrible misplay for him. I don't know what he was thinking.
Hmm.
You can maybe get away with betraying someone once, and people will still trust you. Who's going to trust you after you betray people twice? I
Yeah.
don't know what he was thinking. Not to criticize his game too deeply. Clearly, he got where he was, and he made good plays elsewhere. But at that point, I don't know that he recognized that it was really ride or die for him. If you lose the vote and you're on it, you can come back from that. But if you flip to get off of it and you are, arguably the reason it failed, then nobody's going to trust you after that. But yeah,
Yeah.
as to what I would have done
No,
differently,
that's
I would have made it clearer in the group chat that I was doing that. I assumed Chili telling them, "Hey, Taste is going to do this," would be enough for them, and clearly they never really trusted me again. I'm not sure they viewed disagreement both as personally motivated, um, and betraying the alliance, which I very much disagree. For me, a betrayal is not disagreeing on an outside target, but targeting the inside. Um,
yeah.
so again, I think it was just a difference in perspective of the game that really I didn't account for at the time. I thought they would recognize, like, even if they disagreed about the principle, he's doing this because he believes it is a net positive for us, and he's doing it to keep his word, to Blaze. But
Yeah.
again, I don't think people take me at face value. I don't think people understood my game in that way. I don't think I've read very little of the viewers Vista. I don't think they took me at face value. Um, I don't think Chili understood my game. I think I had to. I talked to
Yeah.
Fierce Mom after the game, and I think it took him a while to understand where I was coming from. And I didn't think it was that complex, but clearly it was something that was unfamiliar and alien to a lot of people.
I mean, uh, to me, and again, this is just what it looked. Like there was a lot of like private conversations that obviously like people weren't privy
Sure.
to. To me, the way that your game looked like was that you were wanting to drag Chaos and Drake kicking and screaming to the end, because I felt like that you had, I don't want to say control, but you were able to like guide their votes because you were the only person that really had any sort of rapport with those two. And so I felt that they were like really powerful weapons for you to use. And that was my perception. Obviously, after talking to people, that is not the case. But I think that people's fear of you, Chaos, and Drake was very, very real. I know that Merck talked about that. I know Hashel talked about that, and I know Spokes talked about, like, that's a tight three right there, and that's like something to worry about. But I was also like, Taste is the only person who's putting in any fucking effort with them. So, like, of course they're gonna, you know, be a lot more like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing with Taste?
Well, I guess I can appreciate that fear because if Chaos votes me instead of Chili at final, I'd win the game probably. Um, I think maybe if he hadn't been in such pain at the time, I might have been able to convince him. But that's neither here nor there. It's in the past. But I get from that point of view, I can appreciate why people thought that was going to be the case. But you either take me at my word or you don't. And I told American Jose that I wasn't going to betray them. Granted, it was because Chili wanted to ride with them, and Chili is the only person that Chili was at the top of the totem pole. I was not going to go against his preferences for reasons that I've explained, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't going to come together that way. So it's unfortunate, I
I
think, that Merck could not take that in me, but he just couldn't.
I I also felt like that the final nine was also kind of a change in, I felt like there was a change in your game after that, where I felt like you were trying to be much more low key. And I don't know if that was anything that you were doing on purpose, but I just felt like that kind of after that 9, there was like a shift in your game, and and I don't mean that in a bad way. It was just like like you had been very like public facing, and then I felt like you kind of pulled back, and I didn't know if that failed attempt at the flip had kind of made you snake bit or what was going on. But I felt like at that point you kind of were like dialed it back a little bit and then just kind of went with what the consensus was instead of trying to make your own consensus. I don't, does that make sense?
Well, there's sort of a combination factor there. In the week preceding it, which was, I believe, both the Sally and Blaziken votes, um, at that point, I was not sleeping a lot. I had to take some new medication that fucked with my sleep cycle. So it was like, borderline manic in the way that I was behaving at the time. And that worked for us
Mm-hmm.
with the Sally vote. Um, and that put me, I think I would have handled the Blaziken vote much better if I had been myself. That's not to say it would have gone off, but I think I would have handled it in such a way as to not expose myself to risk in the same way, or have
Mm-hmm.
Merck and Jose distrusting me significantly after the fact. Um, but that's making excuses. I did what I did, but after that week, things got a little bit, it calmed down in that regard. I got over the transitional side effects, and um, I also understood that I had to slow down a bit. Um, I had to slow down for the first vote because I started getting pushback from Chili about whether or not he really thought our partnership was long lasting. Was, well, not long lasting. He I feel like he kind of rules lawyered his way around the arrangement that we had, which put me in a regrettable position because at this point I was kind of stuck in that role that I alluded to earlier, and there was not a lot I could do in terms of an alternative because I had helped develop a scenario where we had all the power, and if we was not going to be me anymore, you know, that's
Yeah.
that's not a good situation. So I wanted to make it evident to the Mafia 4 that I was willing to do whatever they wanted because they didn't believe that I had the Mafia 4 interest at heart, which generally speaking, no, I didn't care for them that much. Um, I didn't care for the way that they spoke about the game and about players when they were together. Um, Jose was less guilty of this, but I think it brought out the worst in Chile and Merck that didn't come across in private conversations and elsewhere. And I really had no love for them, but I was tied to them through Chile, and I was not going to betray it because it would be a betrayal of him. So
Yeah.
I think they picked up on that, and maybe I could have expressed that better at the time. But how do you say to someone, I don't particularly like this alliance, but I'm in it as long as Chile is, without sounding like you're just feeding them a line? Because they can't look inside your head and see the level of commitment you have to your partnership. And also that blows up our F2,
Yeah.
which I think people had a sense of at that point, but they didn't know that to the extent it was. Um,
Yeah.
so the first
I thought
vote.
the idol, I thought, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. Oh, we skipped over playing the
I,
idol.
yeah, I was going to say, I think that the idol play, like it was weird that Haschel had such a focus, or that people had such a focus on like Sally and Bunny as like a tight duo. But when, people obviously didn't know that that idol that Chili played was your idol and that you had requested that
Mhm.
he had played, that he play that idol. So to like everybody in the game, it looked like here's Chili playing an idol on you. And
Yeah,
I think that should have set off like huge flags like, okay, if Chili is willing to blow an idol on Taste at the merge when Taste is not ostensibly a target to get voted out. Like, what else is going on with these two? And I just thought it was weird that like nobody ever seemed to be like, we need to break these two up.
I think I set nice groundwork before that because when I found the idol, but before I told Chili, we were talking about the clue in context of what we would do if we found the idol. So here I am holding one, and I need to either claim it or figure out a way to massage the fact that I'm not going to claim it for when it comes out later. So what I said at the time, which was true, is that I don't see it as an individual tool. I see it as a community tool for anyone that I'm working with, anyone that I care about in that regard. So I
Hmm.
think those that remembered that talk probably just read it that way. That being anyone that was on cheese at the beginning. So I guess Merc, Hashel, Spokes, Bunny should have been asking about it, but people were really receptive to the idea of it as a community tool, and Chili at the time also committed to that. So they could have just been remembering that, I suppose. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know if it came up, but I thought it was a misplay at the time, and to some extent it was. If you view any playing of an item or an idol when you don't need it, um, conversely, I also think it was at a point where I was paranoid, given the thing we mentioned previously, um, and also the fact that I wasn't in a good mindset at the time for the other thing we mentioned previously. And Chili had mentioned to me in the run up to the vote that he thought it reasonable that I was going to get votes thrown my way. So when we add it, when we add up the fact that we don't know where people are voting, we don't know if the LP alliance is actually a thing because there was some suggestion that it might be coalescing, and then my partner tells me, "Hey, I think you're going to get votes." Um, that's what prompted me to go after Spokes, and then that's what prompted me eventually to use the idol when the first thing out of our control came to pass. Um, so yeah, it didn't shoot right. I thought I was going to be the target. I don't know if there was a chance of me being the target. Probably not, considering I think that at that time, Chaos and Drake would have been reluctant to target me at that point. Um, but you never really know. And do I wish that I
Yeah.
hadn't in retrospect? Sure, obviously, it's a sub. Um, it's a substandard. It's not a beneficial play to lose an idol at any point when you don't need to. But all things considered, I don't think it was a horrid misplay. Um, it's
Yeah.
not like I played it on the bunny vote or something. I played it
Yeah.
when we
I don't know
would
if
we should have lost a vote. We should have lost it. And considering we should have lost a vote and we didn't know who the target was going to be, I don't really regret it.
the interesting thing was that Merck found the rehidden idol literally 2 minutes before, because it was hidden in the bullhorn emoji. And I think that you interacted with it, and Merck interacted with it like 5 minutes before you did. It was, the timing of it was just insane.
I don't know. I thought the second idol was in a picture leading into a challenge. Are you thinking of the vote eraser?
So no. So
Okay, I guess
here's
maybe I don't
here's
understand
what
the timing.
happened.
Uh-huh.
No, you're fine. You're fine, because it's this is, I kind of hesitated to tell you this because I don't know if this is like gonna make you upset or not, but I'll just kind of, this is like a behind the scenes thing.
Sure.
So the clue to find the idol was hidden in a post. But what happened was when Cena went to go hide the clue, he inadvertently hid the idol instead. So he copied the wrong imager link into what was supposed to be the clue. Does that make sense? So like he had a
So,
he had
yeah.
a clue, and then there was the idol, and he inadvertently hid the idol where the clue was supposed to be. Merc interacted with what was supposed to be a clue but found the idol, and then you interacted with the bullhorn emoji, which is where the idol was supposed to be hidden. So it was this like long convoluted like string, but literally there was like a 5 minute, like if you'd interacted with that bullhorn emoji 5 minutes early, you would have gotten an idol. It was the timing of it was just
So
like
what you're
fucking
saying is that
insane.
I would have found the idol probably if it had been placed in the proper place.
Yes.
Cool,
Now
great.
that's assuming that Merc wouldn't have been able to figure out the clue. Like Merc might have just gotten the clue and been like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I know exactly what this is," and everything probably would have still stayed the same. But it was
What
just
was the
like
clue? Do you remember?
because there was. I don't think I actually ever saw the clue. I just know that
Mhm.
because even Cena was confused because Merc was like in his confessional and was like, "Hey, I found the idol. I found the idol," and Cena was like, what the fuck, like how did you find an idol when you didn't interact with, because technically he should have had to interact with the emoji, and Cena was like super confused at how he found the idol, and then Cena was like, oh shit. I mean, it was like, I don't, obviously, like I'm not telling you this to like piss you off or make you upset, but
No,
it was funny. It was interesting. Like there
it's
was two big
interesting.
fuck ups this whole game. One was
It's
from me posting the alliance chat in the alliance chart in announcements, and then it was the mishit idol where like these two just kind of weird things that happened.
yeah. For those of you listening, if anyone's going to be interested in hearing my story, um, that was the alliance chat that Sal mentioned, or the alliance chart that Sal mentioned, was what made me paranoid going into that vote because Hashel was the only person that had the green online circle at the time, and I assumed he had notifications on, so I assumed he saw it. I don't know if he did. I don't know if he didn't, but if he saw that Chili and I were holding
If it
idols, he was tight with Chili and I was not, or I was not tight with him, then I think I was a logical target there. So that was another reason
Oh
why I
my
was paranoid
god.
and decided to play it.
I am so Taste, I just would like to publicly apologize for that. Like I know that you and I
Don't
kind
worry
of
about it.
talked about it like briefly when it happened. So for what it's worth, I don't think Hashel saw it because I think
Mm,
Hashel and I think you are both respect the game enough that having that information is something that you would be like, this is fucked and like I can't play. It was Hashel had been awake and had posted in his confessional literally like 5 minutes before I posted the alliance chart.
mm,
What Hashel told me when we talked was that he had posted and then he had gone to sleep right after that. Hashel said that he did not see the chart. I don't think he saw the chart. I don't think you saw the chart because I think you would have told Cena. I mean, like the fact that you came to me about it like instantly, um, it instantly makes me feel that like had you seen it, you would have told Cena, and I think Hashel has enough respect that he would have told Cena. So ultimately, I don't think it changed anything in the game, but now with what you're saying, I can totally understand like how that may have made you paranoid that like all of a sudden your games were blown up. So I'm sorry about that.
yeah. So
I hadn't even considered that as like a possibility.
yeah, don't worry about it. Like it's not. My game progressed the way it was. I still could have won if but for a couple of different words at Final Tribal, possibly. Not to take away from what Chili and Jose did, but you never know. Maybe I convince one person differently, I gain the tie and I win. So clearly it did not, you know, blow up my game. But for the context, that's why I felt compelled to play the idol. I had that. I didn't know it about Hashel at the time. I agree with you. I don't think that he'd continue. But I didn't know that at the time. I knew that if he saw it, that I was clearly the biggest target in his sights because I think he had a good relationship with Chili. And, on top of that, I had Chili telling me that I was probably going to get votes and um, wasn't sleeping well at the time. So, all that
Yeah.
together, all things considered, I'm amazed that we came out positively in that vote at all.
Yeah. That vote was just it's interesting because I asked Chili last night why he thought that excuse me. why he thought that Drake flipped from Merc to Sally. And um, I don't, I apologize, I can't remember exactly what he said, but I just thought that that was interesting that she ended up, like, I don't know if she just wasn't aware of like who you guys were voting for, or if there was, if she was just confused and was like, I'm voting Merc. But like the fact that she flipped her vote changed like a lot of stuff down the line. And um
Sure.
yeah, is just that merge vote was just super interesting with Haschel like voting for Drake, Drake flipping her vote. You know, there's just like a lot of stuff that lined up on that. Plus, as merge votes in Survivor are typically fucking crazy anyways, so I don't blame you. Like when you played your idol, I was just like, makes sense to me. Like I'm not, I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah. I it it depends on your standard for what a misplay was. At the time, I felt like, God, I just wasted this advantage for nothing. But in retrospect, I don't think it was that bad a decision. There are certain things in my game that I feel worse about now, looking back on it, but that's one of the things I feel better about now. And as to why Drake changed, I actually
Yeah.
never asked her. Um, if I had to guess, I think it's because it's easier to be a part of the vote on the first time than seen to be a decider in the second one. You know, if we lose a vote just the first time through, that's just a clear blindside. You can, well, I guess not blindside if you sort of see it coming. I think that term's very overused, especially. I don't care for that characterization for a lot of stuff. That I think maybe we had won this entire time, and that was on spokes. But um,
Hmm.
I think that it's much easier to say to someone after the fact, well, I was part of this, we went through with it, it was what we wanted to do at the time. But there's a certain level of affirming that you are rejecting what your prior alliance wanted or what your friends wanted when you confirm it on a second vote. And I think, maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that Drake went into that not really caring who it was. And then when it was very clear that it was very tight and it might decide the way that it went, um, I think maybe she decided, this is actually the way I want to go. But again, I don't want to put words in her mouth because I didn't ask her. The way that I approached that after
Yeah,
the
I'm
vote was
talking to
just
her
saying,
on.
like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, you're fine. I was just going to say that I'm talking to Drake on Monday, and I'm actually really looking forward to talking to her. Um, so
I really
you
enjoy talking
being
to her. She's a very pleasant person to talk to, and she has a clear interest in books that I think speaks a lot to a person. You can know, like, not to be twee about it or anything, but like someone that like really has a passion in that regard, I think you can sort of just spell out certain other things that you're going to like about them generally. Like, I'm sure that like BTK likes books as well or something, but generally speaking, um, but yeah, I don't know why she did that, but that's my guess.
yeah, that was kind of what my guess was too, was that it was just like I don't care who goes, but I want to make sure that somebody that does go. And I think that she correctly realized that Sally was like the bigger threat to your group than Merc was. But I'm actually looking forward to actually asking her and actually finding out what you know
Yeah, the
what
last
her
mystery of the
view
game, right?
was. Yeah. Um, so we had the Haschel vote at 7, and that Haschel vote was another one of those votes where I was like, okay, like maybe something is going to happen here. Maybe something is going to happen here. And then
Something probably
Haschel,
should have
like, yeah, the problem was that I feel like Haschel appealed to the wrong people because he basically pulled Chaos and Drake into a chat room and just did a hard sell. It was, if I go out at 7, you're going out at 6, you're going out at 5. And if
He was right.
if I get voted out, yeah, exactly. But the thing was is that like I don't feel that Chaos or Drake really had any motivation to flip at that point. Like Hashel did the hard sell, and then they immediately went back and told you guys, "Hey, Hashel's trying to like fucking flip us," and you know, and I just think that if had Hashel approached that a little differently and maybe talked to somebody else and had them approach Chaos and Drake, maybe things would have been a little differently there. But I mean, I think that, and I told Chili this too, is that I thought that one of the really effective things that you guys did was that you were able to paint your target. You were like, even if it wasn't necessarily like this is the order we're going to vote people, when you guys locked in onto a target, like you did a good job of like Chaos. Like I didn't personally feel that Chaos was like a huge comp beast. Like he won Predator Prey, and then he won, I can't remember the challenge that he won. Speed questions, I think,
He came very close in one,
or
and then
the
he won one, and then came very close in one in short order, which freaked out.
yeah,
I don't know, some of the Mafia Four people. I don't remember who exactly. I think if Haschel wanted to live, he needed to either take me out or take Merc out, and I think at that point Chili was starting to say, like, okay, maybe we can get rid of him, but Merc I think would have been the smart play for him. Um, I would have preferred to take out Jose, I think, at that point, if I was going to vote against the Mafia 4. But as long as Chili was in on that, I wasn't going to vote against the Mafia 4. However,
yeah.
like I said, I, at this point, thought that Chili was going to do me the favor of um, flipping on them before we got Chaos and Drake out. And it didn't come to pass. So
Interesting.
I know that there was a perception that I was
So
stringing along Chaos and Drake, but it was my full expectation that something was going to come to pass that didn't come to pass.
so your plan then was to just stay cheese strong till the end and just vote out Merc and Jose, and then just it would have been you and Chili, Chaos and Drake at the final four. Is that what you're saying your ideal final four was?
I
I
don't
just
know.
don't want to. I just want to make
I
sure I'm
don't
not
know if
putting
I could.
words in your mouth or anything.
I I don't know if I. Excuse me. I don't know if I could convince Chili to dump both of them, especially because I know at that point he was getting close to Merc. I didn't know at the time who specifically he was getting close to. This is something I found out after the fact, but I realized nobody's. They're not talking to me anymore. They're talking to each other almost exclusively. So clearly they have some arrangement going on. So I expected a favor repaid that was not, and um, I didn't really think past that. I didn't know where it was going to progress from that because I didn't know how it was going to progress, how that was going to follow after it happened. I didn't know if
Had
I
you
could convince
considered
him to do.
maybe had you considered maybe like reaching out to Hashel and saying like, "Hey, let's you, me, Chaos, and Drake vote Merc." Like, was that a conversation that happened that we just didn't see, or was that not something that was even on the table?
I don't think Hashel was willing to engage with me. I tried early on in Merge and he kind of ghosted me. It may not have been intentional, but I gave him the hey, let's talk game sometime soon. I know that we kind of started off oppositional, but we don't have to stay that way. And then he's like, yeah, I'll talk to you later. And then later never came. And then after
Okay.
that, I think he only reached out to me twice more. And once was after the Blaze vote, where presumably people thought that I was the next out. And then the other one, I think, was right before when he saw the writing on the wall after Spokes. So that was kind of the nature of our relationship. I never got the impression that he would work with me. Um, I
That
also,
makes
we
total
skipped the
sense.
Spokes vote, but I think that I did a pretty good job of planting that seed. And letting that grow because I hit that early and often to make sure that it wasn't me.
Yeah. By the way, I'm sorry. I'm having like a really good time talking to you, and so
Mhm.
I apologize that I'm not like as keeping on as like a tight like let's talk about all these votes in order.
Sure.
So that's my. I
I'm not
apologize.
offended.
Uh,
I'm not offended. It's just something that occurred to me that um, I was. If we jump back to after the failed Blaziken vote, um,
yeah.
not a good position to be in. Both Jose and Merck think that I was trying to betray the alliance, which again I don't think it's that difficult to conceive of what I was doing. Um, I was pretty upfront about what drives me in these games, but I think people project their own play style onto other players. I don't know that they do, but I think that
Hmm.
happened. I think that can happen. Rather, I don't know that they did, but that can happen. Um, and when you see a move that doesn't make any sense to you based according to your game strategy and game priorities, perhaps you must assume, well, that can't be the case. Um, but anyway, it was not a good position to be in. I know at that point that Chile started to fray, which was something that, for reasons we've discussed, I didn't feel that I could do. So I was not particularly uh, able to flex that much at that point. Although I think part of the reason I was able to roll on a bit um, was that I just owned it completely. I told him I think I made the right move. I think
Hmm.
it will time will bear out that it was the right move at the time, and I did what I thought I had to do. But let's move on from it. And what Merck asked for was engagement in the alliance. So as soon as I had the opportunity, before anyone else could really start throwing out names, I said, "Look, Spokes needs to go. This is admittedly partially personal here, but he has demonstrated that he has no loyalty to anyone that he's working with. He will do whatever he wants. He will tell people he's made commitments and then drop them. He's done it twice in ways that have decided votes, and we just can't have someone like that around." They also thought he still had the double vote for some reason after I told them no, he used the double vote here. So it was easy to say, oh, plus he has a double vote waiting. I don't know why they still thought that was a thing,
I
but I wasn't going to correct them.
Spokes. So here's some like inside baseball. So at the Spokes vote, Spokes was like trying to work with Haschel to um to get rid of, I believe it was Drake at that point. And Spokes's whole pitch to Haschel it was like, I'll use my double vote. I'll use my double vote. And the whole Vista was like, why are you making plans with Haschel to use a double that fucking hinge on you having a double vote when you don't have it? Like
Yeah,
it was one of those things. It was so funny, like when it was happening, because it was just like, what the fuck is going on here?
did he forget that he used it?
I don't necessarily think that he forgot. I don't. Uh, I know that I asked him when Spokes and I talked. I know that I asked him, and I cannot remember what he said, but it was
Mm-hmm.
more that he was hoping that they were going to be able to build like a coalition that it wouldn't have mattered. But
Right.
it was so funny. It was so funny, and actually one of the things that Spokes said was that he wishes he had been more public about using the vote doubler because he felt like that having that made him a target. And I
It
think if
did.
he had been maybe a little more open about it, that it may have changed things a little bit, but probably not like too drastically.
Mafia 4 had no reason to think that he still had one. I told them that he used it, but
I thought it was blatantly
people
obvious that he
saw the
used it.
specifics. Yeah.
I thought it was blatantly obvious in the bunny vote when there was the one vote that was written on parchment that like you never saw before that
Yeah.
and you never saw after that. Because like I don't know about you, but when I played last season, all my votes were essentially formatted the same. like I used the same picture, I used the same font, I used the same size, I used the same color as, and that was like my way of signaling. And I told like my allies, like, this is what my votes are going to look like, so that, that they would know. And I thought it was just so weird that people didn't think about, like, well, what's this one vote that we've never seen before and never saw again? Like, I thought it was blatantly obvious that he used the double vote, but apparently some people were like, he did what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to complain. It helped me put the nail in that coffin. So I
Yeah.
mean, let that be a
No, I
lesson
thought
to you. You
this.
spoke with me, I would have taken you to like 4 or 5 spokes, and instead you're gone the very next minute. You think I'm at the bottom? I'll still fucking kill you. But
But are you aware of like the stock watch that we had going on in the viewers vista?
it's been alluded to.
Okay, so I'll give you the TLDR is that basically after every tribal council, Fast Luck would like assign a dollar value to all the people that were still in the game. So like
Hmm.
obviously people that were in the Mafia 4 were like higher dollar value than like, the people that were outside of that group. The only time that you ever decreased in value was after the Haschel vote, when like you were kind of saying like you felt like, people were saying like, oh, you're going to be next, you're going to be next. That was like the only time that you dipped in value. And then it was like the following, you and Chile were always like 1 and 2. It would kind of fluctuate depending, but that was like the only time you were ever like dipped in value. And then after that, you just like skyrocketed back up. So all these people bought Taste shares and then were laughing all the way to the bank when you skyrocketed back up the very next cycle.
Yeah, I'm GameStop, baby.
Yeah. um, so, okay. I know that like, I know that Haschel was like a real interesting kind of force when he was going out. Was Haschel like trying to make any pleased he I'm sorry, you had already answered this, excuse me, because you said that he hadn't really talked to you. Were you worried that Haschel was like actually going to be able to pull something together to get past that tribal, or were you pretty confident that like, hey, as long as the four of us vote together, like nothing bad can happen to me?
I thought he had great capability, but I don't think he exercised it well in this game. I get the sense that he could be a very good player, but I don't think he played very well this game. So to that end, at that point, I thought he had kind of dug his grave, and I don't think he handled his position all that well at the time. And I don't mean that as like any sort of further reaching criticism, because I had I respect what his game was. He was a very dangerous player at the time that I thought we needed to take him out, but I don't think he handled his position well. So I was not particularly worried at the time, no, unless he had an idol, because I didn't know that
Okay.
Mark had it at that point.
Yeah. So then we had kind of two just pretty straightforward votes. After that, we had the 6-0 chaos vote and then the 4-0 Drake vote. Um, did you try to do anything in either of those votes, uh, like privately or otherwise, to kind of flip them, or were you just pretty much like, okay, like I've just got to, you know, I don't want to bring a target onto myself, so let's just go with the flow here?
I tried to call in a favor that I anticipated, and it didn't come in. And I think that that is probably more so than the Blaziken vote. My biggest failing in the game was expecting that favor. I think I had reason to do it at the time. I don't think in my position it was a failure due to stupidity or due to credulousness. I think it was a legitimate expectation that I had, and it just didn't come out that way. So I tried. I tried to flip chili, and it didn't work.
What was, and obviously I don't want to violate any, you know, personal conversations you guys had. Like, what was your pitch to him in that what was your pitch to him? Like, was it just like Merc is dangerous, Jose is dangerous? Like, let's go with Blaze and Chaos. And then, like, what was his kind of counter proposal to you?
My suggestion to him was that these people have been truer to us and better to us throughout the entire game, though we have found success in this power concentration. I think the power concentration was defined by the two of us. I mean, I don't think it's conceited to suggest that Chili and I were the biggest influencers in the game. That's not taking away from Jose or Merck's game,
I
which were legitimate. They got to Final Four. But if we had decided to stick
I
with,
don't think that's conceded, and I think you're 100% right.
if we had decided to stick with the Advanced Wars group instead of the Mafia 4 group, I think it would have gone in the opposite direction. I think we would have had Merck and Jose around. I mean, maybe they would have tried something with Haschel, whereas Drake and Chaos didn't. But I think I think their game was boosted by us more than ours was by them. So what I said to him is that, I understand that you feel your loyalty is entrenched in the Mafia 4. Mine is not. My loyalty is entrenched with you. So I'm not going to go against you here. But I think that Drake and Chaos deserve our loyalty more than they do. But at that point, I think Chili had the finish line in his sights. So it just wasn't going to happen.
Hmm. Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate that that didn't shake out. I hadn't. Guess I hadn't. I guess maybe you never mentioned that in your confessionals, or I don't. I don't recall anybody in the Vista talking about that, and I feel like that would have been like a huge conversation topic in the Vista. But
Yeah, I mean, we checked in a couple of times. I knew, I mean,
yeah,
especially after he wouldn't move on Chaos, I knew he wasn't going to do it for Drake. I gave him
hmm,
one last shot, but when you know that someone is just completely set, I tried more for Chaos. I tried to convince him, and it just didn't come together. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, like there's stuff that viewers didn't get to see because we went into private conversations, and I know that it was something that I alluded to in response to, I don't remember, did you ask me a question where I said, look, there's just some stuff that I'm not going to talk about, and I understand that we lost stuff like
yeah.
this. It was so
I,
it
I,
was so intertwined with other stuff that I still don't feel it's my business to talk about, that it was kind of hard to divest because you could pick out pieces, but they wouldn't necessarily make sense unless you had the whole picture. Like, why did I think that I had this favor coming? Why did I expect that I could flip Chili here? And I can't
hmm,
necessarily get into all that without sharing things. So I'm sorry if that's still an unsatisfying answer, or to anyone who ends up watching
oh
this, that it's an
no,
unsatisfying answer. But I ask your indulgence in
no,
accepting that I
it's
was not just a dupe for some reason.
yeah, yeah, no. I actually had pulled up our conversation real quick, which was where I basically said, "Is there anything you want to share from one-on-one chats that you have with people
Yeah.
outside the server?" And basically, your response was like, "I'm not sure what's intentionally said in confidence versus what isn't. I certainly like to and did previously, but I thought about it more and decided probably wouldn't unless it was game breaking. Broadly, people claim to be okay with the Haschel vote, and I don't remember if this was your attempt at the Haschel vote or if this was the actual Haschel vote. So I'm just reading what it says here.
I
I'm
think it was
assuming
after the
that this
fact.
was right before the actual Haschel vote because I think that the 20, I think because what was Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, I was not confident in the first Blaziken Haschel vote. Um, I
Yeah.
thought there was viability there. If Spokes had stayed, then I think Chaos would have stayed. I also, I knew that it was going to be a hard sell for people, and that I was looking to put together a vote with people that I was not 100% sure of the reliability for. So I knew that it was risky, and given that I was a worst case scenario person, I always assume that the worst is going to happen. Um, which I think my public answers about always expecting the worst to happen may have led to the impression that I was not in any control of my game. Which anyone who read my early ones know that it's the same deal. But That's, I think that that might have aided that impression.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that totally makes sense. I mean, a lot of the stuff that you like, you're doing so good, like articulating your game, and it really, it really makes me now question even more like some of the tribal council questions that you got. But before we get to final tribal, because I really kind of would like to talk about the final tribal as in depth as you want to go.
Hmm.
But at the final four vote, you know, what Chili told me last night was, so basically Jose and Merck came to Chili and were like, we're voting taste. You should vote taste with us. With the idea being that Chili votes for taste, you vote for Merck, and then Jose and Merck vote for Chili. And then so they were trying to get a vote split, I think,
Sure.
between you two. Um did you consider, I mean, like, did you consider voting for Chili? Or because what Chili told me was, he said, I knew that as long as I voted the same way as Merck, or excuse me, I apologize, I misspoke, I'm sorry. What Chili said to me was, I knew that as long as I voted the same way as Taste, the worst that was going to happen was I was going to go to fire. Like, did you consider, like, did Merck and Jose come to you at all about voting out Chili? Or like what kind of
No,
conversations were happening? Because that was the night that it was like the comp was over, and then tribal was like 15 minutes after that. So like what kind of conversations did they have with you?
they didn't. I think they knew that my support for Chile was unconditional and
Hmm.
that I was not going to do anything that would put him at risk. I think they expected that.
Okay.
I talked to Jose right before and I said, "Hey, are you gonna, would you? Is there anything I can say to you that would make you vote for Merck?" Um, this is me knowing at that point that they had a final two, but is there anything that I can say to you to convince you to vote for Merck so that we don't have a fire making here? Um, which I think would have been in his interest. I tried to express that to him. You get Merck on the jury guaranteed voting for you. Um, and uh, you deprive Chile or me. I didn't know it was Chile at that point, but you deprive us of the possibility of coming into final tribal with the medal on our chest of winning the fire making competition. Um, but he didn't go for it. So he said, I could not be convinced to vote for Merck. He very specifically said I could not be convinced to vote for Merck, but he did not ask me to vote for Chile because I think both of them knew that it just wasn't going to happen. But I think
Now
they thought
Chili
that
told
Chile
me
might
that
vote for me.
one of his blind spots was the relationship between Merck and Jose, and he said that he did not realize like how close they were. Was that something that you were like aware of and were like, hey, this is something we need to watch out for? Or were you kind of in the same boat too, where you were kind of caught off guard by how close those two ended up being?
No, I expected it because when you're in an alliance and you have a two, you have to assume the other people have it. When they're all active players like that, I don't know if Drake and Chaos, I don't know what their relationship was um, with respect to our advance wars or whatnot. But for big time players like that who are really thinking about the game and making it far into the game, I just assumed that they were tight and that they were going to vote together. Um, it it surprises me that Chile did not think that way. I always framed these situations to him as we should take out one of them earlier because they could easily flip on us. And he said, "No, I want to trust Mafia 4." And granted, they didn't try anything until Final Four, but they could have. They could have tried it on me. They probably would have succeeded on me. Um, I expect that Chile bumped them off of that, but I don't think it would have been in their interest to take out me. You take out me, fine, but I think that puts them on the chopping block sooner rather than later. Um, But yeah, that surprises me that Chile didn't consider that because I just kind of assumed that was the case.
Yeah. Um, so, I mean, going into Final Tribal, you must have, it must have, I can't imagine how it must have felt to be like, this is it. Like, this is what we have been shooting for 39 days. Like, man, this is fucking cool. Like, we are here. Um, what was like, did you have any conversations? Um, I'm assuming you did based off of things that both of you have said, but like, did you guys kind of set ground rules for like how tribal council was going to go? Like, this topic is off the table, but like this is totally fine. And also, were you like, did you consider? And obviously, I know with what we kind of talked about, just for full disclosure, like Taste and I talked for a little bit before we started recording about some stuff that we don't feel really comfortable sharing here, but that, anyways. But did you like consider going after him, or was that just like a complete non-starter for you? I know that was a long
No,
question. I apologize.
we came to the agreement that we were not going to criticize each other's games. If directly prompted to explicitly talk about what X player did wrong, like presumably that's not the same. But um, we came to that agreement, and I even attempted to clarify and make explicit. No, I'm going to talk up myself, and I'm not going to downplay you. Um, I'm not going to make your case for you, but it is not my business to tear your game down. And clearly, we had a different understanding of that.
Yeah. Um, I thought your opening, uh, like, I kind of came in. I was also a little baked, and I apologize, but I came in kind of about 30 minutes in, so I got caught up on the tribal. But like, I read your opening statement. I thought your opening statement was like fantastic. Like, I thought you did a good enough. I thought you did a really good job of like, this is what I did. Um, you talked about how you wanted to build your game around respect, sincerity, and trust. And I thought you did a really good job of handling that opening. Where I thought shit went off the rails for you was like, all of the questions seemed very negative towards you. And I know that we talked about this before we started recording, but like, I can't imagine like what that must have felt like to be like, okay, I feel good, and then all of a sudden, you have spokes going, um, or you have Merc. Taste, you played a passive game after the Blaze vote. Chile took agency of your final two and dragged you to the end. Why'd you not address that in your opening statement? And then you have spokes basically saying the same thing. And I was just like, what game did they watch? Because that was not the game that I and the viewers watched.
Yeah, I mean, I think Merck's position is more understandable in that he probably felt, given that he got closer to Chile and that I said I'm not going to betray Chile, that I either completely missed what was going on there or that I was explicitly relying on him and just had given up. Um, I understand more why he felt that way. I still think it was an unnecessarily combative question, considering, like, I don't think anyone else got anything in that sort of vein. Um, but at least I can forgive him for his perspective. I don't think it's right, clearly, but I at least understand where he's coming from. It was annoying to see, like, why did you not address this? Because I don't think I fucking have to. Like, isn't it self-evident that if you make Final Tribal after being considered a biggest threat halfway through the game, and like deciding arguably the crisis point of the game with your work, like, isn't that enough to suggest that you aren't just brought there because nobody thinks that you're going to collect votes? Because if that is the case, it's a mark against the people that brought you there because I was one short. But
Yeah.
with respect to
Yeah. And
spokes, like
and
with spokes, like first of all, you're the one who did me wrong. You know what I'm saying? You're the one that flaked on me when you said that I could rely on you. Where do you get off like with that shit? Like clearly your game sense is not all that strong if you thought you were going to make that move and last more than a day. So that was a little annoying to see from him. But it's very difficult, I think, to it's difficult for me rather to manage assertiveness with goons in particular and self-confidence without coming across as aggressive or arrogant. From what I'm
mhm.
used to engaging in, there is nothing particularly aggressive or conceited about the way that I reacted to those questions. There was energy there, but it was energy that matched the question, in my opinion. But clearly, other people didn't feel that way. Um, that just might be a difference of norms between us. That said,
So
maybe I should have rethought the way that I answer them. But I am self-critical enough on a daily basis, in and outside of this game, that if someone's going to come at me with something that I think is just completely bananas, if you said, "Hey, your second half of the game was pretty weak relative to your first one," that's legitimate. You got dragged here and you're a goat. Fuck off. Where are you? You're the one asking me
yeah.
questions. And I guess people didn't like the way I responded.
Now, and I don't want to. I'm going to ask this question, and I don't. I just want to be clear. Like, I'm not criticizing how you answered the question. Do you did you just pretty much assume you didn't have spokes vote and were just in full like fuck it mode, or with spokes in particular, or were you just like defensive because like your answer was, I want to rebut with a question for you. When you're guaranteed a spot at the finish line, what plays are left to be made that aren't just pointless theater? I got myself here and consequently helped him to get himself here through my efforts at the points of highest pressure and uncertainty. If that isn't enough because jurors wanted to see me making moves for show, oh well. Like, I felt like that answer was a little combative. I thought it was a
It
good
was
answer, but I
intentionally
just
so.
thought it was.
I did
What was
not
that? I'm
think.
sorry.
I mean, it was intentionally combative. That's like I said, if you come at me with that energy, I'm going to
Okay.
come back with that energy. That's the way I operate.
Okay.
It's I went I reared up in an all boys high school, so like you might imagine there's a lot of shit flung. In addition to completely stunning development in all sorts of other ways. I routinely talk shit playing hockey and shit. It's natural to me. I'm surprised that people seem surprised that I would respond that way. But yes, I would never vote for someone I considered a goat. It just wouldn't happen. So I projected that onto them. But if they felt that I didn't deserve to be there, then no, I did not see a world in which they voted for me because I would never vote for someone in that position.
And um I thought like that your I thought that your answer to Blaziken's question was really good. Um I thought, I thought that you had some really good answers, but then there were some answers that you gave that I just felt like were combative, and I didn't and I was trying like, if you read the Vista, you'll see there was points where I was just like, why is Taste being so combative? Like, is Taste trying to, like, what is Taste trying to do here? And I just, um were you combative with people who you were like, I don't have a chance at this person's vote, or did you get, because I have to imagine that after 4 hours of intense questioning, like, anybody would start to just, unravel a little bit. Like, my tribal council was 2 hours, and by the end of my tribal council I was like, Jesus fuck, I couldn't do this for another second. And you guys had the outlast outplay, and there was a lot of, like, in my tribal council, like, Kupo, Steak, and I, we didn't address each other. like we had a couple times where we addressed each other, but for the most part, we kind of like left each other alone. Whereas like I felt like you and Jose were like really going after each other. And then Chili was just kind of sitting back. Was that like a conscious decision to like go after Jose, or was that just sort of like a byproduct of the questioning that you were getting? Because it was a very spicy tribal council.
See, it's funny you say that because I felt reasonable engaging in that way because I read your final tribal and I saw that people were talking back and forth. So I assumed that that was something we could do. And I did not necessarily intend on it until I feel, well, Chili in his very first response did what I had the understanding that we were not going to do. And I wanted to address that because, frankly, he made a lot of good plays and he had a lot of good points. He had a strong game, but I think he was very liberal with his interpretations of certain events in order to distinguish himself from me in our partnership. And I did not particularly have the patience to take that. And so the unexpected nature of having to do that, in addition with the first two questions I got, might have put me in a combative mood. I'd be curious to see what else you thought that I answered with that sort of energy for. Um, because I did
Um,
not intend to, I don't think, except when I got questions that were like, hey, you fucking suck, explain it.
yeah. I and I just want to be clear. Like, I don't think all your, I didn't feel like all your answers were combative, but
Mm-hmm.
like I felt like so Chili's answer to Spokes about let me see if I can find the actual question from Spokes real quick, sorry. Where it was like, would you have rather gone to a final three that you know you could win, or would you rather go with somebody that you thought you could uh okay. My outlast question though is specifically for Chili. Taste, you made it very clear. Taste has made it very clear that he'd rather lose to you, meaning Chili, than vote you out. Do you feel the same way? Specifically, if you knew last night that voting for Taste would win you the game straight up, would you have done it? It wouldn't have, obviously, and you were right to smell something wrong. But would you rather be at a final tribal with Taste and lose, or be at a final tribal with two other players and win? Um, so Chili, I'm sure that you know, was like streaming, and when it came time for him to answer this question, he was just like, how do I fucking answer this question? Do I like answer in a way that I know Spokes wants to hear, or do I answer the truth? And he ended up answering in a way that um that he thought that Spokes wanted to hear, which he didn't end up getting Spokes' vote anyways, so it was kind of all for nothing. But I felt like that I didn't know if you realized that, because like your response, I gave you my word and I keep my word or fail in spectacular fashion trying. That sounded like very fucking genuine from you. Like that I would have, because obviously I was a little I thought that what Chili said was true, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe that that's, like how he felt. Like, what the fuck? And then people were like, no, in the stream he was saying this, saying this, saying this. But I just like,
I didn't.
did you know that he was lying, or what happened there?
I didn't think that that was the truth. I didn't know if it was. I didn't know. Um, it was more in response, I think, to the general tenor of the past week, where he would come to me, I think, to make himself feel better and say things like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm really thinking about voting you at 4. I probably won't, but I'm really thinking about it." And it's like, why would you tell me that? And I understand. I appreciate that
Yeah.
he thought it was being honest and open. But realistically, I think that it was after dealing with a week of that when I stayed unconditionally supportive throughout the entire game, like I promised him I would. Um, it was that on top of us clearly having different understandings with respect to criticizing each other's game. I'd run out of patience. It's something I take very seriously are the commitments I make to people. Um, and
And I could
I
tell,
didn't.
like, I don't, you and I have played Mafia together a handful of times. I didn't know you really well. Like I knew your name, I knew your avatar, I knew that I had played Mafia with you. But like this game was
But I also
my
have a certain
like I felt
reputation.
like this game yes. Now, I I didn't necessarily like buy into that reputation, but like I also didn't discount it either. But like as the game was going, I was like, you know, Chili and I have a very similar personality, so in in some regards. And I was like, well, if Chili like thinks that taste is cool, like taste must be cool. Like so it this game like really impacted the way that I viewed you, and like I felt like that a lot of people in the Vista that didn't know you got to know you this game. And I think that, that's one thing that going forward, I think that there's like people who will have a different view of you. But I was very impressed with your level of, dedication. Like I told Chili, like, I fucking wish I would have had a partner. I guess I told you this too, that I fucking wish I would have had a partner, that I could have confided in. And I wish that I had had someone that I could have bounced ideas off with and worked with. Um, like you guys' game was exactly the game that I wanted to play. And I just thought like, and fine. And I'm trying to I'm focusing on your game, but I thought you both played independently of each other. I thought you both played really well. And I know that I know that the way that Final Tribal went is hard for you, but like I I think that short of cutting Chili or Jose, like I don't know. I I'm sorry. I guess I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Excuse me. Like I thought that you did enough that your game was different from Chile, but I thought where the execution it was the execution in describing it, and then I think that you also had a handicap going in with this perception from the jury because like the jury talks, and I don't know exactly what they said because I try not to read Ponderosa um, just for surprise elements, but I don't know if the general perception was that you were carried. I don't I I don't think that is the case at all. But I also think that we the viewers had the benefit of a macro level view of the game where we could see all the chats. We knew everything that was going on. It was like watching Big Brother where you have like the live feeds and you can see everything going on 24/7, whereas like the jury just had their perceptions. And sometimes unfortunately for them their perception was reality when I, as I've told you, don't think it was the case at all. um was there
Yeah.
any questions that you wish you had, or was there anything that you wish you had said or done at Tribal that you didn't do?
This is going to be another one of my weird principle things, but I find it crass to twist a question away from its meaning to suit your own ends by talking about all the great things you did. I tried to reply directly to the questions because I thought that was more respectful to the jury and to the game. It's not everyone's opinion, and that's entirely legitimate. I'm not saying I'm right, but it was right for me. And I think that affected my game. I don't think I got to talk about my game the way I would have liked to, but
Hmm.
that's something that I that's something that I guess I have to be comfortable about sacrificing because it was more important to me to behave like I wanted to behave, really. And that's not to say that I didn't get
Yeah.
too heated about certain things, but generally speaking, I didn't want to lie to the jury to get their vote. I didn't want to pander to them. Yeah, maybe I think going into the tribal I could have won. I think I mean clearly I could have won. I was one vote short. And again, if Chaos votes me instead of Chili, which I think was a viable option, if I'd had the opportunity to speak to that and respond to a question of his, but it just didn't shake out that way, and I think I would be in
Yeah.
that position. So I agree with you that I didn't get a chance to really reflect my game. I wish I would have had that opportunity, but I didn't. And my strengths and my weaknesses both stem from my insistence on sticking to certain aspects of my personality and principles. And in this case, the weaknesses won out at final.
When was there any votes like I'm sure probably chaos was a vote that you were kind of surprised about, but were there any other votes that you didn't get that you were surprised that you didn't get, or were there any votes that like the other players got that you were like, wow, I wonder why that vote went where it went?
Going into tribal, I expected Chile started in a position of maybe 5 votes, and then Jose and I had one or two apiece. So, what I expected is that I would have to try and shore up my base, which I thought was I can probably rely on getting 2 out of 3 from Blaziken, Drake, and Chaos, which I ended up getting. So I need to try and shore up all 3 of those just to make sure I can get all 3. And then if I can maybe pull spokes, because maybe he feels guilty about fucking me over. Clearly he didn't, but yeah, somehow he felt aggrieved by it, I guess. Like, that's not how that works, bud. Um, I did not think I had a chance of getting Merc. Merc says he would have voted for me. I'll believe it. I don't think he would have. I'm sure he believes he would have. You don't go into tribal thinking someone is a goat and lucky to be there because you stayed your hand against them and then vote for them. It just doesn't happen. I'm not saying he's lying to me. I'm just saying I don't think it would have ever come to pass. Haschel is not going to
Yeah.
vote for me. I know that he had like some big threat to vote for me, but as much as he likes to view himself as a steward of the game, and maybe, I don't know him well enough to say, he's not going to vote for me over someone else who deserves it that he's tight with. I don't think there was anything I could have said to him. I think I was right in my assessment, by the way, in that weird question. I do think I had the strongest social game out of any player, and I do think that I had the strongest. God, what was his weird one about like using all the things regarding the
Oh, the
format?
ninth. Oh my god. Let
Yeah,
me
like
just tell you,
he
when
picked
that
out.
question hit, when that question hit everybody in the Vista, because I'm looking at the timestamp, that question got posted at 11:10 Central Standard Time. So I don't know what time zone you're in, but
Eastern.
if you're on the Eastern time, what's that?
I am Eastern. Yeah, I lost a lot of
Oh,
sleep
you're
with
on
this game.
Eastern. So that was fucking midnight, 10 after midnight question came through, and everybody in the Vista was like, "What the fuck question is this?" It was very funny. Like if you read the Vista, there's like a timestamp where we're all like, Jesus fucking Christ, like what the hell is this? But um like
So
question
yeah,
aside, I thought your answer was good.
I think I was right. I think I still maintain that I had the best social game, and I think I have the best argument for whatever his weird one was about, like, the things you did outside of the game. I scraped a shit ton. I found 2 idols. I used the private chat rooms in the challenge, just like weird shit like that. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think I had the best strategy, but I think that my strategy was sacrificed um, by the commitments I made to Blaziken, and also I was not thinking the straightest at that time from lack of sleep. So
Yeah.
I do think that I did not have the best strategy in that regard. I think I had a good one. I think I was a legitimate
Mm-hmm.
contender in that regard, but I don't think I was the best for that. But even then, I didn't expect to convince him. Um,
Yeah.
Spokes, I thought I could get. He says his boat was open for me. I really doubt it. I think that's one of the things people tell themselves because they want to sound, as impartial and above it all. But you don't lead off a tribal calling someone a goat and then decide to vote for them. It just doesn't happen. if you're going to vote for
Yeah.
someone you consider a goat, it's because you are a spiteful juror. And I have dealt with a spiteful jury before, I think. But this time, I think the jury was reasonable. Um, I do think they should have picked me, but it's not like it was a bad choice to pick Chili and Jose, and it's not like they picked him in droves over me. It was literally as close as the vote could get for all of us. So, um,
Yeah.
who else is left? I thought I stood a really good chance of getting Drake's vote because I apparently was the only person that like treated her like a person and had reasonable expectations and understood that she wasn't just a random vote. Um, chaos,
I thought
chaos.
her
I
last statement.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, we're having like lag, so I apologize for talking over you. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Um, Drake's final statement like legitimately touched me when it said, I started out something awful survivor in month 7 of COVID isolation. My relationship was falling apart. Right about the teen shakeup, I found out that my dad had lung cancer and prognosis was not good. That's why I was able to exit isolation and go home to visit my family for a week. The game gave me a place to hang out and people to hang out with and forget for a while that life was terrible. I figured I'd last a couple of weeks and I made it farther than that. I figured I was being worked like a Muppet, but my overall goal wasn't to win, it was to have fun and really and truly. And like all good Let's Players, the game created its own mythos. Hey, remember that Survivor season all about Kongs? So thanks. Like when she posted that, like that was like that was like fucking real. And like I was saying earlier, like a bunch of us have like the people in the viewers vista, we have a macro level view of like what's going on. I don't think that a lot of people knew what everything that was going on with Drake. I think if they had, the conversation surrounding her would have been vastly different. That being said, I don't think that she should have to reveal that kind of stuff to people in order for people to treat her like she should have been. And that is one thing you and I are lockstep agreement on, is that I felt that like the treatment of some of the players was like pretty bad. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like,
there was
I'm not putting myself on a high horse here because in the end, I was not able to save them like I wanted to. So clearly, they relied on me and I couldn't deliver. But it was one of the major reasons I did not care for Mafia 4 was the way that they talked about the LPers in general and Chaos and Drake in particular. Um, yeah, so I agree with you. And Drake gave some vague indications that things were, like stressful for her and she really was looking forward to getting out of quarantine because it hadn't been good for her. But she didn't tell me any of that. And I feel really bad because I wish she would have reached out. But I understand why she didn't. I'm a stranger on the internet. But
plus,
I feel like,
in these,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in these kinds of settings, in these like social strategy games, you know, it can be weird to bring up personal stuff, because then it's like, oh, are they trying to use that to garner sympathy? Like, are they using that as a weapon? Are they just telling me? Like, I remember one time in a Mafia game, I was scum and people were hunting me, and I just happened to have a really bad day at work. And I posted and I was like, look, you guys can think I'm scum, that's fine. I can't defend myself because of this thing that happened at work. And I instantly regretted it after I said it, because it took all the heat off of me. And people were like, oh, like we can't scum hunt Sal today because like he's had a bad day. And you know, when that happened, it made me feel like shit, because it was like, oh well, fuck, did I subconsciously do this on purpose, or like was I just venting? And ultimately, um, I don't know why I did it, but it was like one of those things that I like deeply regret doing. And so I can kind of see, like in these kinds of games, like bringing that personal stuff in, it can be a little it can sometimes blur the lines and make things much more real than they necessarily are.
But we kind of spoke about that sort of thing before, so
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
understand what you mean. But this is coming from a guy that faked being drunk for a mafia game so he could pose strangely to throw people off. So I think I think mafia is a little different. I wouldn't lie about anything
Uh,
serious happening to me like that, but
yeah, I'm not
I would tell the
I
truth.
agree
If I
with
was
you that
having a bad day in your situation, I would just be honest. I'm having a bad day. It's not a lie. It's if they want to not vote you because of that. In my response, as bloodhound, if I was on you like that, I'd be like, I don't give a fuck. I'm sorry you had a bad day, but you're scum. I wouldn't feel bad about that. If you were intentionally leveraging it, saying, "Oh, how do I get out of this?" Well, I'll manipulate them emotionally. That's a different matter. But I don't get the sense that
yeah.
that's what you were doing to me now.
No, it that's a line that I personally wouldn't cross, but it was like after it happened, it was one of those things where I was like, well, why the fuck did why the fuck did I bring
Yeah,
this personal thing into a game? But
yeah.
what I wanted to ask you about n- next, and I'm pretty sure you know the question that I'm going to ask you, when it was a tie between Chile and Jose, it seemed like there was a long delay in the time that that Cena announced like how the tie was going to be broken, and then when the vote actually came in. I don't know how much of that was just Cena trying to ratchet up the tension. Was there? Did you really? Because oh my god, let me look here because I felt like it was like 20 minutes from the.
I don't think it was
And
that
like I
long.
said, that could all just be.
Yeah,
It probably wasn't that long, but it
I
was.
think it was just like 1 in the morning
So
when we've been sitting there since 9.
yeah, so it was like about 10 minutes. It was about 10 minutes. Uh, was it a 10-minute decision or was it like a 30-second decision that just ratchet, that was just drawn out? Also, was it a vote for Chile or was it a vote against Jose?
It was a 1 second decision. I gave him my word, and I wasn't going to break it, and that's why I picked that obnoxious quote from Floyd Mayweather. It took me a minute to find something good, but I thought if anyone is a
Okay.
real role model for our ages, it's Floyd Mayweather. But it was not any remark on either of their games. It's
Mhm.
not. It was not me judging the quality of the game. I gave him my word. I would vote for him, and I would, and I did.
Okay. Because I just was, because I was just curious, like if like if you were voting for Chile or against Jose, like and I'm not trying to like push
Sure.
the agenda or anything, but was that like a consideration as well? Or I mean, you pretty much said it was like you knew exactly how you were going to vote, so
Yeah, it's
I think the answer is probably it was a vote for Chile.
well, if it's I read your question to be like, did you look at their games and then just decide that, voting against Jose meant you judged his game not worthy. Um, Also, I guess we may have come across as combative, but I didn't. I think my combativeness was mainly for Chile at that point. In fact, part of my strategy at Final Tribal was to originally I thought Chile was going in with a 5-2-1, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm going to win, I need to pull votes off of him. But we agreed that we weren't going to downplay each other's games. So I can say all I want about my game, but that doesn't guarantee that I'm going to get enough votes if I convince these people. So clearly, I need to put some votes on Jose as well, because there are some people that just won't
Hmm.
vote for me, but might vote for him. So it's surprising that I came across as combative with him when I tried to also talk up his game as far as it interacted with the Mafia 4, which I believe was Chile's claim for the late game strategy. So if I make it like Jose and Merc were the driving force of the Mafia 4, that strengthens his game without me really attacking Chili's. It's just saying, the strength of your game was in your alliance with me, and you know it. But clearly, I was just a little bit off.
Yeah.
I should
Okay.
have gotten that third vote instead of Jose, but I think Jose would have voted for
Uh,
Chili. So clearly, I needed to take one more from Chili.
I to clarify, so my question was like, were you voting for Chile to win, or were you voting to for Jose to lose? Like,
I was
does that make
voting.
sense?
I was voting to keep my promise.
Okay, that's fine.
I,
We can just leave it at that. That's fine. I think that that's the realistic
to be
answer.
honest with you, I
So
never expected to have to vote for a winner. I thought from the first day that I was going to be at Final Tribal. I thought I was going to win, but I thought I was going to be there, and I was there, and I just came just short.
I when that happened and the votes got revealed, and all of a sudden I realized like what was going to have to happen, I felt fucking terrible for you. I was just like, holy fucking shit, like this. I felt terrible for you. A lot of people in the Vista were like, Jesus Christ. So I'm sorry that this was how things ended.
I mean, it's a function of the game, right? I mean, you could factually say that Chile would not have won the game without me, and that's. I think that's true, regardless of the fact that I had to vote for him at the end.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, it's it's not how I wanted to go, especially because, like I said, I mean, I don't mean to assume that I had chaos vote because I don't think I'm entitled to it, but I expected that I probably had good odds for it. And if I had picked that up instead of Chile, I think Chile votes me to win. And lo
I
and behold,
I
chaos couldn't
asked
put tribal.
I asked Chili that question, and he said 100% he votes for you. Like
Yeah,
I I felt like that Jose Jose probably, like you said, Jose probably votes Chili, but like who knows? Like Jose could have easily just been like fuck you and voted. Jose had no obligation to vote for Chili, so I mean maybe there was that there, but I just I know how emotionally draining these FRGs can get, and then to on top of a 4-hour tribal council of like waiting for all these votes, the intenseness of the vote, and then to just be like, okay, well you have to decide now. Like I was just like, holy fuck, like could anything else happen tonight for this guy? Like Jesus Christ.
I think it was not a good night for me. I think I could have won with a better night. Um, I don't think that I don't know that anyone else in my situation would have done better.
I
I got
sure
a
as
pretty
fuck
rough
wouldn't.
hand dealt to me. Um, First off, starting with the very
I
perception that I
definitely
was a
wouldn't
goat.
have.
I had to start out with the perception that I was a goat. I had to start out with two out of was it the first two questions that were like insanely negative, or was it just me like
Three, it
saying
was Haschel's. I'm sorry for talking
Cashel?
over you. Excuse me.
Yeah,
Haschel's vote. Haschel's question I felt was like kind of benign, and it was like, "Are you here with your ideal final three? And if not, why aren't you?" Which I didn't think was like a terrible. I didn't think that was like necessarily a combative question. But then when it was like the double whammy of like Merc and Spokes, it was just like, ooh, okay, like I see,
yeah.
I see how things are going here.
It seemed like they wanted deference because they were jury, and that's not what I perceived the role of the jury to be. It's not what I was as a juror twice, and it's not what I think the jury should be. But it's everyone's their own person, and I'm not going to give you deference. It's not in my personality, and they should have known that by now. But yeah, it's I had that. I had unexpectedly had to add the aspect of my game of okay, my game is getting criticized when I did not expect it to be. I also have to work on, responding to that somehow with someone that is not going to interact in thread, which is his right. But um, I think he would have had a strong. I think I probably had the worst tribal, but I think he had. I think he had one that was not too much better than me. I just think he was in a much stronger starting position than I was. I think Jose handled himself well. I also boosted him, so like it helps when you've got another person in there saying, "Yeah, Jose was pretty good," but yeah, it was just a stack
For,
deck, man. And then after that, I had to pick the winner, which was I feel bad for Jose in that situation because he would be an entirely legitimate winner that never had any chance of getting my vote. And
yeah,
if I had to compare their game, I didn't. I have not compared their games. I have not looked at them against each other and said, okay, this is how I would have voted, because I would rather not know if Jose deserved to win, and I just gave it to Chile when you know Jose deserved it more. I mean, granted, as much as anyone can deserve something like this, what happens
yeah,
after?
yeah,
I think none of us would have been a bad winner. I think I would have been the best winner. I think I had the most interesting and most electric performance, but it wasn't to be.
yeah.
But it kind of sucked.
For what it's worth, I agree 100% with your assessment of, Jose had a really strong tribal council, and then like you and Chile, not as much. I thought that Jose might have actually just won it outright with, um, I mean, I was just in the Vista and I was like, holy fuck, like Jose is like knocking this shit out of the park. And um, so I do agree with your um, assessment overall of everything.
My expectation was that Jose started from the weakest point. I think I started out with, a neutral of 2 votes. And I think he started out with a neutral of 1 vote that he could guarantee. And I thought that was Merck's vote. And I thought Haschel was up in the air. I didn't know what about his relationship with Bunny and Sally. I figured one of them might vote for him. I don't remember. I think one of them did, just because he was with them before. Um, but outside of them, I thought he had the most ground to gain, and he gained enough, but not enough to win it outright, which doesn't entirely surprise me. I think he was quiet about his game, even more so than I was. So that I think maybe the first person that really knew the full extent of Jose's game was Merck on that jury.
Hmm.
So any pro Jose would have probably been heavily outnumbered by pro Chile at that point. I don't know if Merck poisoned the well against me by saying I was a goat, or if that was just perception of the jury that has no sense of the game going on. But
Hmm.
it is what it is.
Yeah. I
I also think that Chaos might have thought that I was a goat because I couldn't save him, which was a problem in management on my point. I should have told them a little bit more. I think that I expected a favor that wasn't going to come, but you know, you live, you learn.
yeah. Do you think you're gonna play again? Like in
I don't know what I get out of it at this point. Like the reason I play now is because it still bugged me every once in a while that I didn't win SAS when by all rights it should have been a pretty clear decision. PMOM, who shits on me all the time, says you got a shit jerk. So if he says that, like I'm not unreasonable in feeling that. Not to take away from the performances of my other 2 alliance mates, who I think I steered the ship, but it's not like they were just goats.
it
But
was what like
to be fair,
Holkamat and Mob?
no, that was Mob and Puggle, who
Yes, yes,
who were
yes.
there. They did work, but I clearly did the most work. I got my entire day 1 alliance to final tribal, and I got the least votes. But PMOM says I got a
I
shit
wish I
jerk.
had I wish I had been on your tribe because I love I Mob is a Wrestle Hut poster and I'm a Wrestle Hut poster, and I always like had this like insane respect for Mob, so I always really liked him. Um, but yeah, I wish I had been on your tribe instead of the one that I was on. I probably wouldn't have gotten second. So, um,
Yeah, I forgot that you were in that.
and uh, everybody does because my
The
tribe
four tribe
went
dynamic.
to. Yeah, it was a 4 tribe dynamic. Hold on, let me just pull it up real quick, and I'll tell you who was on my tribe because uh, the first person that got voted out. So I was on the same tribe as Opop, uh, a Hungry Mouth, and I think it was also Capitalist Pig was on my tribe. I think it was the 4 of us. And oh, and then there was a person named Derizian because for some reason I feel like it was 4 tribes of 5, and Derizian didn't come
Yes,
to the
yeah,
first event. So Derizian didn't come to the first tribal. So it was this like super easy. It was like the 4 of us voted Derizian out.
yeah.
Then when it came to the second tribal, I didn't know that like Opop and Capitalist Pig were like fucking this. And so I was trying to be like, hey, let's vote out C Pig, let's vote out Opop.
Yeah.
And instead it was like my name that got written down a whole bunch, and I was like, oh, this sucks, I don't like this. And then I never played again for let's see, that game was in 2013. Then I didn't play again
Hmm.
for 7 years because this I was just like so snake bit by this one game, and it was like fuck this shit. So
Yeah. Well, it took me 8 years of, and I'm still not over blowing that one. Where by all accounts I should have won running away. Um,
mhm.
so I said, you know what? It's time to stop fucking around. I'm not going to be hitched to the Mills train this time. I'm not going to be just blindly joining everyone like I did with GBS because I don't even remember it. I'm going to win this one, and I almost did it.
Yeah, I I think that your assessment of it really being anybody's game going into final tribal council was pretty bang on, because even if you look at like the final stock buy is basically Chili and you were like $33 and $32 respectively, and then I think Jose was like $29. So I mean, it like the way that we were handicapping it, it was like you and
Mm.
Chili were neck and neck with like Jose kind of pulling up the rear, and that was like how I kind of expected things to go. And then when it ended up tying, and it was not you and Chili that tied, but Chili and Jose, I was like, oh, okay, that's not what I was expecting.
I think recency bias played into that. My major contributions came earlier in the game, and so when I took a nap, um, I think that's the perception that lasted with people. So that's why I thought that Chile was a decent favorite going into this. Um, but again, I think he lost. Like I said, my expectation was 5-2-1. So for me, he lost 2 votes and gave them to Jose, and I just needed to pick up chaos. Um, Although I didn't know if it was chaos or I just needed to pick up. I thought that other than the people that I was close to, I thought I might be able to pull spokes. And I thought that I might be able to pull one of Sally or Bunny. Although, if I remembered correctly, I don't think Bunny liked me that much. I like in a game sense. I don't think he has anything against me personally, but I think that um, he tried to engage me in light of whatever they were trying to do on Sally, and as part of a
Hmm.
tag team with Chaos. And I just told Chaos like, no man, I'm not interested in this. No, it wasn't on Sally. It was the week or the bunny vote, and Chaos tried to
Oh,
engage me on
okay.
that, and I was just like, look man, maybe if it was viable, but I would rather not. I'd rather not vote Spokes, considering he just came through for me big time.
Yeah. Well, is there is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
I don't know if there's
Like, was
anything
there
left.
any?
I am an open book, with the exception of a very few specific things. So if there's anything that you would like to ask but thought that I wouldn't want to talk about, chances are I'll talk about it. This is how you get over the loss stinging. Am I ever going to play again? I think you ask. I don't know,
Yeah.
probably not. I came out of
Yeah.
this feeling somewhat disillusioned. Um, what's I think I've deserved to win twice, and I haven't done so. And I haven't done so, I think, through large part through my refusal to play the game the way the game needs to be played in certain parts. And so,
Hmm.
if I'm going to have to compromise on that, is it worth it? I don't know. Um, what is one winning a game then? I wasn't going to hang on to the $50 if I wanted. I don't know what I was going to do with it. I'd probably give it to Humane Society or something. But um, so it's not actually winning that matter. Is it being perceived as a good player? Probably. I'd like to be perceived as a good player who didn't just make it once and then blow it. But I think I think winning matters to people in that regard. So maybe that's I don't know. If I play again and I play another game that you know might be the best game, might be the best social game, might be the best whatever Hashel's breakdown was, and then I lose again. Like what? Do I gain anything from that? I don't know.
Yeah. I yeah, I definitely understand that, and I feel that you know these games do fucked up things to people, and they're supposed to be fun, like simulation of what the real thing is like. But like when you're in the thick of things, like it's fucked how like real stuff can feel. And um you know I never talked to my alliance mates on the phone. I never texted any of them. Like all of our conversations were in a game setting, so to have like that level of camaraderie with another person, and then to feel the way, to feel so betrayed by them, like I have to imagine that, yeah, that would probably snake bite me from ever wanting to play again either. But I also was going to say too that I used to play a lot of poker, and there was always this debate on like, is poker luck or is poker skill? And the retort to that question is always, well, if poker is a game of luck, why do you see so many familiar faces making deep runs in tournaments? And I have to say that you the fact that you either make the jury or the final tribal council almost every time that you played probably speaks to the fact that you're a fucking hell of a player. And I don't think that you have anything to prove, but I'm also not you, so that's just my like outside
You also have a win.
looking in. What's that?
You also have a win.
Now, I and I don't want to talk about my I don't want to talk about like my game because this is about your game.
Hmm.
I have struggled with my win because I felt that overall Kupo played a better game than I did, and I feel that some of the jury votes that I got were people who were pissed at Kupo for voting them out. Like, I don't think they were votes for me. I think they were votes against Kupo. And so that's like yes, I have a win, but it's not I and I apologize if this sounds dickish and it's not like my intention.
Hmm.
It's not a win that I am like 100% proud of. I am proud of the fact that I won. Like, I think it's fucking cool that I won, but I wish I had won with more agency. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does make sense to you. 810 survive Alpha Survivor champion Pinterest mom freely admits that he won against two goats. And that's why his margin was so large in his estimation. But I don't think you need to, I mean, this is just my opinion. If so many people were willing to ignore the qualities of her game because of the way that she treated them, I mean, most people get voted out and like, yeah, it sucks. But you still, at least me, I acknowledge the player I think played the best, even if they're a dick, because that's the way that I like to, you know, choose my votes. But I think most
Mhm.
people have a line where they say, you know, well, I may not like this person, but you know, they played the best game. So if they felt that poorly treated, that they would vote you over who you thought played the best game, then that is an aspect of her game that she failed to consider. I don't think I did that in my season, which is why I think PMOM agrees with me that it was a poor jury result for me. But I didn't get the sense of that from reading your tribal. It seemed like there was some real bad blood there, which is absolutely a major oversight to a game. You can be strategic, but if you're going to get to final tribal council and nobody is going to want to vote for you, then what's the point of getting there? Like, yes, it takes a lot of skill, but it's lacking a certain aspect of skill. And Pinterest Mom and I have had this
Mhm.
argument over whether Russell is a good player. I think he is a good player with a major fatal flaw, and he thinks he's not. So it's just about how you read it. So I think it's very fine to say that Kupo is a good player, but she also has a major flaw that you do not. So, you know, you won the game. There's no reason to be there's no reason to rain on your own parade because everyone else is going to want a reason to.
And I think kind of as time has progressed, I view it more, as and like I said, it is genuinely something that I am proud of. Like
Hmm.
I recognize my flaws early on, which is that I suck fucking terribly at competitions. So it was like, okay, well, I know that I suck at competitions, so like how do I mask that? I get an alliance. Okay, like who do I want in my alliance? Okay, well, you know, I know this person from Mafia, I know this person from Mafia, I know this person from Awful Big Brother 3. That's like a really great 3 right there. Okay, we need 5. Let's pull in, this person. And I think that like my strength was my social game. Um anyways, thank you for I appreciate the compliment, by the way. That really does mean a lot to me because like I said, my win is something that I'm proud of. It just I wish that I had more agency like in my win, but anyways. um I don't know, I might edit this part out because like I want this to be about you, not not me.
I don't mind
But
talking as a conversation. It doesn't need to be me uh, hogging the spotlight for myself. One aspect of my game is that I am genuinely interested in other people, and I guess it's harder for some people to have that sort of conversation in a game setting. But like I said, I am interested to hear about your game. But if you want to cut it, by all
and I
means,
think
you know, it's your show.
no, I think that's why I was so impressed with your game because like really the strength of my game was I made sure that like when people were going out that I told, I didn't necessarily tell everybody that was going out because especially towards the end I kind of lost control of the ability to do that. But like, you know, Deadbeat Dad, nobody fucking talked to Deadbeat Dad from that was
That sucks.
on
He's a really cool
our
guy.
swap tribe except for me. Oh, I fucking love Deadbeat Dad. Like we talked and we got to know each other like pretty decently. Um, I have a 2.5 year old, and so I found that in these games, like people who are also parents, they that it was like a really good
Wait,
bonding
does he have a
tool.
kid?
And the what's that?
I didn't know he had a kid.
Who? Jose?
Deadbeat dad.
Oh, sorry. He doesn't have I should clarify. He doesn't have a child, but he would like
Okay.
babysit his niece all the time. And
Okay.
but he talked about his niece in like the context of like, this is a child that I love. And so we were kind of able to bond over like, this feeling of like, oh, we both have these children in our life that, bring us joy. You know, Chili and I made very strong connection over the parent thing. The only person who had a child that I really never connected with was P Mush. And that was only because we were had this like stupid fucking fight on like the first day of the game where like we just pretty much like wrote each other off. But like Pimush is a parent, and like we had that connection, and it was one of the. In fact, I told Pimush that I felt like my greatest flaw in the game was not like connecting with her more than I did. Um, but yeah, I think that my strength was just making people feel good about themselves even as they were, getting voted out. And I also think Zesty being the first one in Ponderosa and advocating for me really helped me out a ton too.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think that that's a strength of my own in engaging with people. Um, some people call it a positive thing. MMM or now Jump King called it like talking to a cult leader. But I think it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. And like we have said multiple times here, I mean, you are really the only person that ever seemed to get anything back from like Chaos and Drake. And so you must have been doing you were doing something right. You were doing something right there. So that's why I said like I was genuinely impressed with your game, and because I felt like that's the game that I wanted to play.
Maybe they could pick up on the fact that I didn't look down on them.
It's
I
I
don't think
mean
it's that
that's
hard to treat people with respect,
I don't either.
even when they can't see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I think that just the way that people talk to each other, it can be, through text, through typing, it's sometimes hard to get context. But I mean, I think that you can tell when people are genuinely interested in what you have to say, and when they're just going through the motions, even through text. So maybe they were picking up on the fact that you were genuinely interested in what they had to say versus feeling like other people were just talking to them to go through the motions.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
I mean, I would want people to care about me. I genuinely cared about
Hmm.
a lot of people in that game. I perhaps cared too much about certain things. Maybe I don't need to go out on a limb for Blaziken. I find another way to deal with Ashel. But I felt like that was a commitment that I made to her. And that was something that I was not going to let her down on when the road got rough. So,
Yeah.
for better or worse, that's who I am.
Yeah. I really I didn't know if you would want to do this, and I'm really thankful that you did, because it really you did such a fantastic job of like really shining a light on things that maybe we the viewers didn't necessarily see, or even the other players saw. And I yeah, I'm glad that you were willing to sit down and talk to me for almost 3 hours about your game, because it was illuminating to me and a lot of things, and I had the macro view of everything going on.
Now, I think that viewer perception is going to be influenced by the confessionals they most enjoy reading or watching. So I don't think that that provides an inaccurate view of the game, but it does only provide certain aspects. And I know that from PMOM, I know that um, some of the confessionals were relatively lacking on content. So it's kind of hard to see certain aspects of the game, and you have to extend what you expect based on the impressions of the people that you do hear from, who may not always be exactly on point with everything. Um, I know Pimam has said certain things to me from other people's confessionals um, that reflected things that I supposedly said or did that I don't recall saying or doing, or at least not in the manner that they were projected. That's not me shading Chili, that's several people. So
Mhm.
again, I think it can be hard to pick out what's the truth and what is the truth as someone believes it to be. So in that respect, I think there were probably some holes that may not have been addressed elsewhere from people. Did you interview Chaos?
Not yet.
Mm,
Um, yeah, Chaos and Merc were the only two. Excuse me, Chaos, Merc, and Drake are the were basically the only three that I haven't really talked to.
mm,
Drake had to reschedule. Chaos is didn't want to do anything audio or video, so I'm working on questions for them. And then
mm-hmm.
Merc and I are trying to work something out. But
Sure.
one of the things that's been really interesting to me is doing all of these is just seeing how everybody's perception, how different everybody's perceptions of what were going on. Because like Blaziken, I had the perception of Blaziken that Blaziken was very much tuned out of what was going on. When I interviewed Blaziken, Blaziken was completely plugged in on everything that happened. And I was like, that was like a real shocker to me when I was talking to Blaze. I talked to Blaze for like an hour and everything, like, I obviously was not giving them information that they shouldn't have been privy to. But like I said, what do you think happened at the merge vote? And they were like, I think Hashel voted incorrectly, and I think Drake flipped her vote. And it was, I was like, I obviously didn't go, well, yeah, that's exactly what happened. But I was like, oh,
Mhm.
you know, we'll find out. You'll find out when the game is over. But I was just so impressed with Blaziken being so like plugged into the game, and I don't think that like came across for them. And I
She
don't know.
she was difficult to talk to. It was difficult to get onto game topics with her, and I don't mean difficult like, oh, I hated it, because I like Blaziken a lot. I went on a limb for her for a reason. I really enjoyed talking with her, but it seemed like she wasn't going to. She was very reticent to actually get into nuts and bolts, and I think she realized that I was very much in a power position in our relationship, right? So it does change the dynamic of the conversation. But I never doubted that she had the mind for it. I do think that perhaps she did not invest herself in it as much as she could have in order to actually exercise the ability that I believe she had. I believe that of Chaos as well. I think he started playing too late. I think if he had
Yeah,
been in it from the beginning and could really have corralled that vote on Merc, then the game would have been radically different. Um, but like I said, I think he started too late, and
I
people were wrong. Were just straight wrong about Drake being checked out. She knew the position she was in, and she didn't necessarily know where to go from there. But I mean, why would you vote? Why would you move yourself out of safety? And I told her that I thought I
exactly.
could get Chili to flip, and she took me at my word, and I couldn't do it. So I didn't come through for her, and I feel bad about that, and I feel bad about not coming through for Chaos. Um, but they trusted me, who had made big things happen before, to have their backs. And in another world, maybe I do. I don't think that's a misplay on their part.
I don't either. Now, I was not always like highly complimentary of Drake's game, but there was also a lot that I wasn't aware of with Drake. that I found out kind of more towards the end that like made me kind of reflect back on her game. But like when I found out that she had never watched Survivor before, I mean, I
Yeah,
was just like, I couldn't imagine signing up for something this intense, not knowing like the full scope of what you were getting into, and then just sort of being thrust into it, and then having like all this personal stuff going on along with it. Like it it doesn't surprise
sure.
me that, you know, she wanted to stick with you guys to the end, and I don't blame her because it got her to the final fucking five. Like that's not
And
that's good.
if I had been able to deliver, it would have gotten her further. Now, granted, she did not do enough in her own game to where I think she would have won at final, but that's not a fault. She invested the time that she had into it, and it's unfair for us as psycho obsessives of this sort of thing to expect that every new person that's going to come into this is going to want to play it that way. It's just not reasonable. It's not fair. And
Yeah.
for all I did to turn the vote by pulling spokes, she was the one that decided the biggest vote of the game.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
saying that she was not a player is just wildly inaccurate. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
her game had flaws, as everyone does, but for a first timer's performance, there were wild misperceptions about her game. I
So
think there were wild misperceptions about everyone's game, myself included. I don't think people
yeah,
recognized what I was going for, and I think I was pretty direct about what I was going for. So I guess they just didn't take me, at face
it,
value. But what can you do?
it's interesting that you don't think that Drake would have had a chance at final tribal council, because think about this story. Hey, my name is Drake. I'm a first time player.
Mhm.
I jumped into this game. I didn't know what I was getting into. I was allied with these two power players. You know, people didn't take me seriously. Here I fucking am. Like, you don't think that that might have been like a compelling argument for the jury?
I think Merck and Jose poisoned the well against her too much. If it's me
Fair.
chilling her, I don't think I think I can live through that. I don't think she can. People have the perception of me from earlier in the game as having been a player, where they say, you know what, this sounds compelling, but also, I'll give them a chance to talk about it. I don't think she gets that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That I can totally see that. I just I thought that the interesting thing about the final tribal council too, and we didn't talk about this when we were talking about the final tribal, was that out of the three of you, there was only 2 votes cast against any of the three of you. And I was kind of surprised that you didn't bring up the fact that like you didn't have a single vote cast against you the entire game.
I did. I did twice. Despite I am
Oh,
the
you
only
did?
one of these people, I'm the only one of them that never had immunity and never had a vote cast against me. Because like
I totally
you can't have it both ways. If you're going to say, "Hey, I was a challenge beast at the end," which Jose was, it's not as impressive that you didn't have a vote cast against you because you couldn't. And Chile won a challenge as well. But I am the only person in this game who made it through the entire game without having individual immunity and never getting a vote cast against me. Like, yes, I did play an idol, but it was on a vote where nobody voted against me anyway.
I'm sorry that I missed you saying that, because I guess I must have just I apologize that I must have skipped over that, because I was uh yeah, I apologize that I skipped over that. I didn't realize that you said that, but I'm
No, that's
sorry.
fine. I don't think anyone else read my spiel anyway. I think I wrote a pretty good ending. My opening I wasn't too sure on. I think my closing was strong, but it was long. I
I
didn't know that it
I
was
know
going to be
from
4 hours.
yeah, I know from experience that the closing I feel is was definitely the harder of the two to write, because I wrote my opening with based off of my perception of the game, but then when it
Mhm.
came time to write my closing speech, it was like, okay, now I have to kind of talk about like the reality of the game. Also, by the way, Pinterest Mom really was fucking laughing so hard when you put their name in the sirens uh in your closing
Yeah,
speech. Like they like snipped that out and like pasted it in chat. It was so fucking funny.
yeah, we are very
Um
close, and it became a meme because it's a meme between us because he. Um, I started telling him like, look, your advice is good, but that doesn't mean that I can play the game your way, you know. And in that respect, having like 8-1 awful champion survivor or awful survivor champion Pinterest Mom every time I mentioned his name is just like, yes, I'm giving you due deference as befitting of your station, but yeah, he's a
uh
he's a good player in these games, but he also got a jury with two goats, so you know the results are the results.
I think that I've played Mafia with him a few times, but I think that Mafia and then kind of the viewers Vista was pretty much my only real interactions with him, and he was like a big advocate for you. Like there was one point in time where I thought Mafia 4 was being like just total fucking assholes, and it was I was getting really fucking pissed off about it. You may remember this where I came into your chat and was like, hey, just remember everybody's going to see this when the game is over.
Yeah, because that's
And
why I was pissed at them. That's when they were Merc was bagging on Drake, and I just told him leave her alone. I was going to say angrier
yeah,
things, but it's not worth it with some people. Not that Merc is a bad person. He can come off that way sometimes. I don't mean that as a condemnation of him. I know he didn't intend it that way,
yeah.
but it's something that I
and i
don't
th-
like.
and I think that my perception of what was actually being said was not really accurate. I think that I was interpreting it a little differently. So as I have said before, that is like my own personal flaws that I feel like that I'm a little too sensitive about stuff
Well,
like that. But I
if I was
personally
willing to
thought
speak
that
up
when it
about
was
it, it was
happening, it was
probably
pretty
beyond the pale.
distasteful. So
Yeah. Yeah, if I was willing to speak
I
up about it at that point, it must have been beyond what I thought was appropriate for just joking about another player in the game. Because I'm very hesitant to be that person.
yeah, I went back in Reddit. Um, uh, I went back and read actually what was said, and uh, like at the time, my perception of it was that it was a four-way jerk off session with in I'm not even sure in hindsight I'm not even sure who was like saying stuff now, but
Mm-hmm.
my perception of it was it you just voted Hashel out, so it was the four of you with Chaos and Drake, and this was when Merc and Chili kind of revealed to the whole group like, oh hey, we have idols, and it was this big like, oh my god, yes, we're here, we've done it, like this is fantastic. And I was just like, why are they fucking taking a victory lap when they still have, two more votes? Like, and I just and that was my perception of it. And then it was also something along the lines of my perception of it was like, oh, look at these stupid LPers. They're fucking idiots. Slobber, 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 I think was exactly how I interpreted it. And Pinterest Mom was like, no, that's not at all like what they're saying. And then when I went back and read it, I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. That's not exactly how it went.
I don't think I don't think it's as far off from the perception that was there occasionally. At a certain point, even Chili wrote off Drake and Chaos completely. And it's like you said to him, I think it was a weak point in his game. Um, but
Yeah.
I think that there was definitely, I mean, at that point, there were two votes left. But unless we were going to betray each other, which I thought Chili was going to, but didn't come to pass, there was no real reason, I think, for anyone in there to think that we had any enemy other than ourselves. Um, But I
Yeah, I
agree with you.
actually, I
I'm sorry.
so when I was looking back at this, I did see a point where Merc was kind of slagging on Drake a little bit, and you were like, "Hey, like, leave her alone." And it was right after that that I posted like, "Hey, remember, everybody's gonna see, um, see this when all is said and done." So I was glad that
If we're
you
both
recognized it.
if we're both in
What's that?
agreement on it, I'm going to assume that we were right. That we may capture the spirit of what was going on, if not the letter. Because there's no reason that both you
Yeah.
and I would insert ourselves into that with the same conclusion from two sides of it, from both being in it and outside of it, and reach the same conclusion if there wasn't some accuracy there.
Yeah, and it was within, you posted at 8:52, and then I had deleted my initial post, but I posted my follow up at 8:54. So it was like within, I think you and I were both kind of feeling like the same way within a little bit of time with each other. I don't I don't think that the whole day was as bad as I remembered it, but I remembered it being like, at the time I was like really fucking pissed at people for um the just in general, cuz like when I play in my confessionals, I don't lie in my confessionals, but I also watch how I phrase things in confessionals. Like I would never be like, "Oh, Taste is an idiot." I would say, "I'm not sure why Taste is playing this way. I disagree with it, but let me see like what we can do to kind of work together." I don't know if that makes sense. And I felt like that the Mafia 4 never had any adversity the whole game. They You guys
No,
never had anything wrong. Nothing ever went wrong. You knew every vote before it happened. And I think that with that level of control and with that level of power also kind of comes a little level of arrogance, because it's like, what are people going to do to us? And I think that a lot of that day was just, it was going into the 3-day weekend. It was, like, it started off with Merc going, "Chaos can't have the idol because the two real hidden immunity idols are already accounted for, me and Chili." And then it was like, everybody was like, "Oh, okay, well, now we have the clear path
yeah,
because we don't have to worry about Chaos idling. We don't have to worry about Drake idling." And, I think at the time it was like, you know, like, yes, let's do this. So,
yeah. I mean,
um,
it's like I said. I thought that I had a pretty clear path after the Blaze vote. The only thing that would have gone wrong for me is if Merck and Jose decided to bite the bullet and flip to take me out. But I don't think they were going to antagonize Chile to that level. Because even if he started having doubts about me, I don't think he really would have gone through with a vote against me. Um, Maybe he would have. I don't know. But
mhm,
I think that to that level, I think our relationship would have held. It's possible that Merck could have bucked and played the idol, but I think that would have been a misplay on his part rather than to save it for himself. And I think that's not his nature of playing. If I had been openly antagonistic after the fact, maybe he would have, but I don't think there was any point after the Blaze vote where I was really in danger of going home. I sacrificed my own station by doing what I did. This was not intentional. I wanted to win the vote, but I knew that if I lost it, there was a silver lining in that, yes, I would draw attention to myself, but I would also be considered the low man on the totem pole, which is a better place than being the biggest threat to win the game.
yeah,
It just went a little bit too long at the lowest to where that impression caught on.
yeah. Um, well, I definitely appreciate you talking to me. I'm probably going to have to end up splitting this into two. I really appreciate
Yeah.
you, explaining things. I really appreciate I really appreciated your play this whole game. I, from the bottom of my heart and genuinely, I'm sorry about how, things went, and I'm sorry that this has been so emotionally draining for you, because I feel like that it should have been like, fuck yeah, we did it. And instead it was just like, oh, we did it. And, it really like, when I started hearing that that was like what was happening, I was just like so bummed out. I was just like, oh my fucking God. Like, that's such a depressing end to like what was a really fun, like the middle part. I'm not gonna lie, the middle part little fucking boring when you guys were just steamrolling everybody, but like an exciting end. And to kind of find out like some of the behind the scenes stuff, I was really really bummed out for everybody. I'm sorry that this is, that was the way that things had to go.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Um, with respect to losing, losing is part of life. Losing's whatever. I lose at a lot of competitions. It's just the nature of being in a lot of competitions. Um, but you know, that's not what the problem really is. So
Yeah.
that will resolve
Yeah.
itself one way or the other.
i'm
But I appreciate you taking the time.
I'm
It's been
sure.
fun to talk about this. Pimon was incredibly critical of me in his interview, so it's nice not having every question be like, "So why were you lying here? What are these contradictions?"
I mean,
Some of them were fair rejections, but I think some of them are a little bit unreasonable from his perspective. But that's
I
who he is. So
I want these to be fun. Like, I want, like,
yeah,
I'm gonna keep doing these. Like, next season that Cena's running, like, I want to keep doing these because, for one thing, and I had said this to you in our private messages, when Chili interviewed me last year, that was like incredibly cathartic for me to like
yeah,
talk through my game. And kind of a similar thing with you, where it was like, well, here's some stuff that you guys didn't see. Here's, was my views and my perceptions. Here were my goals that didn't necessarily, like, you guys didn't necessarily know. And it was incredibly cathartic for me, and it left me feeling really good. And so the fact that I got to sit down with damn near everybody in the jury to get kind of like an overall view of what people saw and did has just been, it's just been so much fun for me. And like, I told Cena that I like aim to keep doing these, and I really hope that, like, uh this season had a lot of multimedia that we've never really had in these something awful seasons before, between like
yeah.
people streaming, people video confessionals, etc. Like, Chili wasn't the only person that was streaming, but like, I hope that that's all stuff that continues forward, because I think it's a great evolution for something awful Survivor. I hope that people want to sit down, and I hope that every single person that plays is proud of their game. Like, I want to give everybody like a sounding board to say, this is why my game was good. Like, yeah, I may not have won, but this is like where my game was good. And you've done a fantastic job of like admitting where you had some faults, but but emphasizing like, hey, this was where my game was different. This is where my game was different. This is what I wanted to do. And I don't think that people in the Vista knew about like the Chaos Drake, you and Chili going to four thing. I don't recall people talking about that, if it did get mentioned. But like, that's really interesting, and would have changed a lot down the stretch if, Jose and Merck had ended up in the in the jury. But I mean, that kind of stuff that we didn't necessarily get to see, I think is really cool. And I, again, appreciate you talking to me for as long as you have.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Um, I do, I try and be cognizant of my flaws. I'm very self critical, so I often identify them even before they arise. I knew that I was not, I needed to be in a better position before final if I was going to win outright, and then even to win close. I needed to do more than I could reasonably do. I know that people don't necessarily like the way I write, so it doesn't help. Um, but I still think that I would have been the best winner, but I am not the only reasonable winner, and that's just the way it goes. I won't put you on the spot and ask if you would vote for me, but I think that a decent number of people would. So that's enough. I'd like to be
I will
considered a good player.
say that I think you're a fantastic player. I think my issue would have been bias. Like I will just straight up admit that I would not have been a biased juror. Like I have a pre-existing relationship with Chili. I don't
Mm,
have a pre-existing relationship with you, and I don't have a pre-existing relationship with Jose. And I I feel like that I probably would have voted for Chili just based off of our pre-existing friendship, but that's why I'm glad that I wasn't on the jury, that I
yeah,
didn't have to make that decision, because it was a really, I mean, both you guys, it was amazing to me like how similar you guys played, but then there was just these like there were blatant differences in your game, and I think the fact that the view of you as a goat that got dragged to the end was like, I was fucking shocked when I saw that. I was like, wait, like why do people think that? Because I don't think that you were dragged to the end. I think you walked to the end in lockstep with another player, and or I guess technically with everybody that was in the final three kind of walked lockstep together, and I don't think anybody
mm,
dragged anybody. And I think you guys supported each other. And one of the things that I said last season in my final tribal is that nobody gets to the end by themselves. It takes there can be only one winner, but it takes a fucking team to get to that part. And I think all three of you had compelling cases to win, but like I said, I would have been biased, and I freely admit that. But um, I thought both of you were able to do a good job and make distinctions in your game that you know would have given me given me pause to think about it. But I think ultimately in the end, just being like, okay, I know Chili, he's a cool guy. I don't know Taste. Although I guess I suppose in this case, if I'm on the jury, I probably would have gotten to know you at some point. But
yeah.
anyways,
I meant more. It's like the eye in the sky. You're just strictly
oh, the
judging
eye
the
in
game.
the
I'm not
sky.
asking you to say, but you know,
Oh,
that's where
I
I think that.
I'm glad I didn't have to make that decision, because it that would have been so tough. Even the Vista didn't really know like how things were going to go. I mean, it was funny watching the swings where it was like, hey, that was a great answer from Taste. Like, okay, I think Taste has this. Oh wow, what a fucking cool answer from Chili. Okay, yeah, like I think Chili's got this. Like, oh my god, like Jose's running away with this thing, and then there's this like, oh my god, Jose is running away with this thing. So it was fun kind of watching the ebb and flow of people's opinions on
If we'd had a
Tribal.
nine-member jury with, I guess, Toaster as the last member, I think we really could have had a 3-3-3.
I I think it's distinctly possible that with a 9-person jury we could have had a 3-3-3, and I would have loved to. I don't even know what would have happened in that case. Like, I guess there would have been some sort of challenge, probably, to
A puzzle,
determine who the
probably.
decider was. Yeah, I assume it would be some sort of puzzle, and it would just be like, okay, the last person, the last person to finish is the one who's going to decide the winner or something. Like, I don't even know if Cena has a contingency plan for that, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
had Toaster been on there, you're very right that it could have been a 3-3-3.
like I said, I think it could have very easily been chaos if he'd been chaos and for voting for me if he'd had the chance to bring a question in and been more involved in it. Which I shouldn't have put
Yeah,
myself in the position, but I do regret that I didn't have the chance. But as a closing
yeah, it's
thought,
so
uh, I appreciate you doing this, and I know that you probably will be nice and let me ramble on forever, but I know that you said that you have to. Wow, I forgot that it's 1 in the morning. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. Um, Thank you for taking the time. It's a nice closing. It's a nice bookend um, to the experience.
Yeah. Next season, like I have like big ideas for like what how to expand this out. Like uh, I have I have like stuff that I'm going to talk to Cena about, but I appreciate you one wanting to talk, two talking as long as you have, and three like doing it on camera because like I feel like that I have only known you through Mafia, but like actually talking to you now has given me a totally different view of you, and I'm glad that I got this opportunity as well. And this whole game has like really made me, you know, rethink how I think about people and wonder like, well, is are not that I thought you were like an asshole or anything, but it was just like, taste is, I guess I don't even know how many games we played together, but you were a person that like I've always been scared of Padima. Like it's so funny that like Pod like scares the fuck out of me because he's so good at Mafia, and you were kind of the same way where you were like a person that I was intimidated by because like I feel like you're a pretty good player, and getting a chance to see like you outside of that confirms my belief that you are a good player, but also that like you're not an intimidating person, you're just like a smart person, and you're able to like hone in on things, and you were able to kind of hone in on the fact that like Chaos and Drake are like, you know, people are kind of talking down to them like let me bring them in, let me like let me help them, let me try to do everything I can to like to help them out. So I've really enjoyed this, so thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying so, and thank you for all you did for the season. Um,
Yeah.
there,
So
I'll be honest.
um
There are some gripes that I have about this season, but it's free for me, and it's a lot of effort for Cena and for everyone else involved. So I really appreciate that, and I'm excited to see what happens moving forward.
yeah, I was not prepared to see how the sausage was made, and now that I have, like, it's pretty impressive the planning that like goes into this, but then also there's these like just fly by the seat of your pants moments, and um so yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, have a
Well,
fantastic night,
once again, it's
Taste,
been a
and
pleasure.
thank you so much.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second to
All
say
right.
something off the record.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I'm gonna hit stop, so